everyone. All righty. We obviously have a crowded house tonight. For those of you in the hall, the fire chief has asked we have to leave the hall clear. If you all go out into the lobby, the television is on, the sound is on, you'll be able to hear, but we must have a clear path out the door and down the lobby hall, please. Thank you. All righty. Do we have everyone's family here now? All the kids are here? All righty. Who's ready to have a meeting? Okay. All righty. Well, before we start, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. And what I'd like to do, can I have all the children from the council members-elect come on up front here and maybe lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Come on up front, guys. Right up over here. Come on. You all know how to do this in school, right? All right. Face the audience, and then tell everybody to stand and face the flag. All right. Legs behind you now, guys. Ready? Who's going to start? Which one of you? You? Go. You? Go. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, great job, guys. Thank you. Give them a round of applause. Chief White?
Good evening. Looks a little empty up there for the moment.
It is a little lonely. They're just on vacation.
Yes. If you'd like to join me in a word of prayer, please do so at this time. Father God, we thank you so much for the opportunity to gather here today. We thank you for our nation as we also honor and recognize our veterans, and particularly this week, 75th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. Lord, we ask blessings and health and safety on our military service members and those families that were impacted, our nation that was impacted by that tragedy. Father God, we ask blessings and good health on our newly elected council members and their families as they endeavor and take office here in just a few moments. And Lord, today we have some honored guests of a bowling team from Oviedo High School. We thank you, Lord, for the honor and blessings that have been bestowed on Oviedo High School and this fabulous team. And we ask the same thing, that you guide them and bless them, give them good health in all that they do. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chief. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is approximately 6:40 p.m. We have 3 members sitting up on the dais for the moment. We will take care of that in just a second. We have to just clear up one bit of business, and that is the approval of the minutes for November 7th, 2016 regular session. I'd like to entertain a motion to do so.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion?
Good.
Hearing none, call the vote. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. At this time, we will all step off the dais. Mr. Groot, why don't you take over the meeting from this point forward for the oath of office for Councilman Britton, Councilman Pollack, and Councilwoman Sladak.
I state your name.
I, Keith Britton,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the constitutions and governments
the constitutions and governments
of the United States, the state of Florida, and the city of Oviedo
of the United States, the state of Florida, and the city of Oviedo,
against all enemies, domestic and foreign,
against all enemies, domestic and foreign,
and that I will bear true faith,
and that I will bear true faith,
loyalty, and allegiance to the same,
loyalty, and allegiance to the same,
that I am entitled to hold the office of council member
that I am entitled to hold the office of council member
under the Constitution,
under the Constitution,
and that I will faithfully perform
and that I will faithfully perform
the duties of the office of council member
the duties of office of council member
of the city of Oviedo,
of the city of Oviedo,
of which I am now about Do you? No. Are you prepared to take your oath, sir? I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend the constitutions and governments of the United States, the state of Florida, and the city of Oviedo against all enemies, domestic and foreign, and that I will bear true faith, loyalty, and allegiance to the same, that I am entitled to hold the office of council member under the Constitution, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of council member of the city of Oviedo, on which I am now about to enter. So help me God. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a good one. They all work. Ma'am, are you prepared to take your oath? Please state after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend the constitutions and governments of the United States, the state of Florida, and the city of Oviedo against all enemies, domestic and foreign, and that I will bear true faith, loyalty, and allegiance to the same, that I am entitled to hold the office of council member under the Constitution, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of council member of the city of Oviedo, on which I am now about to enter. So help me God. Ladies and gentlemen,
All righty, everybody, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. We're going to switch things around, and we'll reconvene. I have Wednesday. Wednesday's my only night off this week. All righty. Bob and Nate. Honestly, I don't think it's taken away. I'm ready when you are. Vivek, you ready? All righty. Well, good evening again, everybody. We are going to reconvene the meeting. It is approximately 6:50 p.m., and the council member-elect tag is now officially gone. So off we go. The first order of business is the council needs to elect the presiding officer. I will take nominations.
Mr. Mayor,
Council member?
I would like to nominate you to be continuing presiding officer.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I swear one day I'm going to oppose that. Next up is Deputy Mayor. I'd like to take nominations. Councilmember Pollack, I'm going to have to get used to that. I might call you Councilmember Shank. You never know.
I'd like to nominate Councilmember
Hankin. Second. Any other nominations? Hearing none, call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll just let Linda put the official tagline. Congratulations, council member.
Thank you, Council.
Now I have to go
Appreciate
back
that.
to Deputy Mayor. It only,
That will take him 6 months, and he'll still be calling me Shank and this, that, and the other thing, so we'll be good.
We'll be good.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
All right. Moving along. We have the Oviedo High School bowling team. Drew, you have the young ladies and the coach? Okay, Mr. Costello. All righty, council, if you can join us down in the front.
Yes, she was.
Well, this evening we're going to get to recognize, again, a state championship by one of our high school teams and athletes here in the city of Oviedo. The Oviedo women's bowling team, their record was somewhere around, and we'll let the coach tell us, but I think 125 wins and only 2 losses. So to say these girls dominated is an understatement. Now, I'm going to tell you all just a quick little story. There is a police bowling tournament for the PBA Association each and every year, and Councilmember Hankin and I and our wives, we do like to bowl. We won it last year. Well, we didn't win it this year because we were the 8th seed, they were the 1st seed, and they quickly disposed of us. It wasn't pretty. It was just a classic, where are you? A classic beatdown. So let me introduce their coach, Pat Costello. Come on up. How are you, Pat?
How are you?
Congratulations, Coach. I'm going to give you the mic. Yes, ma'am, and you can introduce yourself.
Okay, I will be glad to.
Well, thank you. I know you're all here just to see us, so thanks for coming this evening. These ladies are remarkable, and yes, I am a little prejudiced, but that's just the way it is. Okay, coaches are supposed to be that way. This first young lady, freshman, started bowling at the age of 8 years old. She bowled the whole entire season, had a little car accident, bowled with 5 herniated discs in her back. Averaged 190. Our little freshman, Shauna Rogers. Come on up, Shauna. You know you're going to have to do this again. You're only a freshman. Keep going. She goes, I'm so embarrassed. I don't know what to do. We're giving her a couple of months off. The next young lady never bowled before this year. Brand new bowler. Averaged around 155, 160. Her very first year out, all the way from South Korea, Priscilla Chun. She's amazing. I said, do this. She does it. Unlike some of the other. Oh, never mind. We won't go there. Our next young lady is a sophomore. Her brother bowls. He'll be a senior next year. It's just born in them. They've been bowling. She's been bowling since she's 4 years old. Averages 180. Emma Miska. I never pronounce her last name right, but I don't pronounce it right. I don't spell it right. It's one of those great young ladies. Our next young lady has been bowling for quite some time, averages around 190. She's trying to get to 200, and she'll make it someday. She's our number one bowler, meaning she's the lead-off bowler. It sets the tone for the team and gets us going quickly like we need to do in bowling. So with 190 average, Amelia Vesquez. Now I have two left. I have seniors that we're going to say goodbye to here in June. In June, we will be going to the United States National High School Bowling Championships. So hopefully we'll be back here, you know. Be nice to say hi to these girls again. I'll say, just say hello to them one more time. So senior threw a clutch strike in the last game of the state championship to set us up for the win, Karina Brown. She's our artsy one. She's a fantastic photographer. And I don't know how many bowling teams have professional photographers, but Karina's granddad, he's our professional photographer for our bowling team. He'll get, believe me, he'll get up there. And last but not least, another senior. This young lady last year won the state individual championship. So she won the state in 2013 along with Karina, so that's when they were freshmen. Last year she won the individual championship with over 100 and some athletes from around the state of Florida. Averages 210, not bad, you know, for a girl. Come on. What's your name? Oh, Caitlin Jones. Come on up here, Caitlin. And they just all got their jackets back with all the embroidering on. And I told Caitlin, you only have one place for one more, and that's the national championship, so that's what we're hoping for. But thank you all so very much. We appreciate you asking us here.
Coach, let's get your team lined up here, and we'll get a professional photographer. Ladies, why don't you come on up over here? We'll get a picture with everybody. Now, and I can attest to what she said about machines. I mean, it was a scratch tournament. It was a complete beatdown. It was a beatdown. Exactly. Just don't bring them back to the police tournament. That's what I meant to say. All righty, moving right along, we're up to our public comment portion of the meeting. This is for an item that is not on the agenda. So everybody who is here for, excuse me, I think it's item 18, it is not necessary for you to speak at this time. Is there anybody in the audience who wants to address council on any other item in the consent agenda or anything else that's not on the agenda this evening? All righty, seeing and hearing none, I am going to close the public comment and move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda this evening is items 7 through 17. What is the pleasure of council?
I would like to discuss number 12 a little bit more.
I'm sorry?
The Beazer Agreement, item number 12. We could pull that from the consent agenda.
All righty, let's make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, pulling that item off, and you would make that item number, whatever number it is, add an A to it.
Okay, so I move that we pull off 12, discuss that separately, and approve the rest of the consent agenda as published.
As presented.
As presented.
There you go. It'll
I'll
all
learn.
become natural. All right, so the motion is to adopt the consent agenda and to move item 12 to actually 12A. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion, or anybody else want anything else pulled?
No, sir.
Keith, you okay down there? Okay. Hearing none, call the vote. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Let me just get down to item number 12. Item number 12, as Councilwoman mentioned, is resolution number 3340-16. It is the Beazer Home Agreement with Mitchell Creek HOA for potable water usage. Councilwoman, you pulled it, so go ahead and ask any questions you like.
Oh, I did ask a lot of questions already, so I'm not sure what the best protocol is. Just share my concerns with it, or
Well, what we can do, one of two things. I can ask the council for a motion, so that way we can get into discussion on the item if you'd like to change some of it. Is that what you're looking to do?
I think
Or
it
just
might
more
be,
discuss
I
some
think
of
it would be more efficient to perhaps move this to like January 17th to
Continue it?
continue it.
All righty, well then, what I would ask of you is to make a motion to continue the item to that date, and we'll see if there's a second, and then we'll have discussion on that.
Okay, I move that we continue item 12 to January 17th.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and for the record, that is to move consent agenda item number 12, which is resolution 3340-16. We're going to continue it till January 17th. Motioner, you have the floor. Do you have anything to add?
At this time, I don't know if it would be wise to add or if it would just be using up a lot of time. So
Okay.
I will turn this direction and get some guidance from the city manager who knows some of my concerns.
Well,
Or just for the audience.
Yeah, I can
perhaps
help.
to just
Yeah,
tip you off. Okay, so what's going on is there's a townhome community off Dr. Stoner Way, and they can't figure out how to water the plants without using fresh water from the aquifer, our potable water system. That is currently not allowed as a general rule with new development. You have to use reclaimed water. You can use your stormwater ponds. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. But my understanding is you can't cross water. So what they currently have going on is they're pulling water from their stormwater ponds to water some plantings over there. And the agreement is written such that they will stop doing that and they will begin using our fresh potable water straight from the aquifer. I'm concerned about this, starting down a road where we do something where we allow people to water that much with potable water. So that's what I'd like to maybe hash out behind, with staff, with the developer, figure out how to do that. I did drive by before coming to the council meeting today. Originally, when I brought this up this morning, we only get the agendas, well, I only got the agenda on Friday because of some techie issues. So I didn't have a lot of time to prepare and try to figure out if we could resolve this issue ahead of time.
Okay. We get
That's
it.
enough? Okay.
Potable water.
Potable water. Now you guys know. I can talk forever.
Seconder, do you have anything?
I was just going to ask, what the issue was, and obviously on that property, there's no option to do a well for for irrigation. I don't think that there's going to be an option for reclaim there for a long time. So, I mean, if staff wants to, look at this and see if there's any other, possible way to get reclaim there that we missed, that's fine. But we do have a couple of subdivisions in the city that have this same issue, that don't have reclaim, that it's just, financially not in the cards at the moment. But yeah, take a look at it, see if we're missing something. If not, we'll get it going January 17th. That's fine.
Okay. Councilman Britton, anything to add?
I did have some questions on this. It was mostly from the metering and charging standpoint. Brian, if I can get with you offline, and just find out what the agreement calls for as far as metering, and I assume we're going to charge them our potable water rate, correct? Yes, sir. Okay. Without the sewer, I assume. So I just wanted to get a clarification on that.
Like Riverside.
They planted magnolias, guys. They take a lot of water. That's part of my concern.
During discussion, we kind of go up and down. That's all right. Councilmember Pollack, you have anything?
I had some, the only concern I had with it was, the availability of the reclaimed water. And that concern was answered. One of the options was drilling a well. The reason they couldn't drill the well was because there were some other concerns with the water underneath where they were going to drill it at. That would have come from the aquifer as well. So one of the options would have come from the aquifer. So to me, I read this and I felt like right now that this was the most efficient way of doing it.
But you don't have an issue with us continuing it till January 17th. Yeah. I had heard that and I'll confirm this with staff, but I had heard that the developer didn't have an issue with that because of the holidays. Is that true, Mr. Cobb?
That is correct. I spoke with the engineer of record this afternoon, and he stated that they were okay with council continuing it to the January meeting.
Mr. Cobb, just a quick question. Throw one more thing out there on this, and then we'll move on. We have a Florida-friendly landscaping ordinance written into our code. Are they meeting all of that this time?
Yes, sir. The landscape plan was reviewed by staff as part of the development approval, and they are meeting the city's requirements.
Right. 40% low use, 30 medium, 30 can be high use, which is usually grass and stuff.
They actually have a higher percentage of the low, which they are allowed to do. The 40% is a minimum.
Okay.
And they have exceeded that.
Get a chance?
Yep. Councilmember Henkin, then we'll try to wrap this one up.
Mr. Cobb, so basically between now and the 17th, you'll just see if we didn't overlook anything, and then it will come back to us if there's no other options to approve or not approve, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We'll go back through and look at some of the concerns as far as how to implement. The agreement is a basic agreement that allows the use of potable water, but with the idea of the stormwater ponds coming into play, it would be good to have the engineering staffs take a look at the technicality of how it's actually implemented. We have to protect the integrity of the potable water system, so that'll be foremost with us.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Cobb. So the motion on the table is to continue this item until the January 17th meeting. Does anybody have anything else before I call the question? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Since most of you are already here for item number 18, I'm going to take a little bit of liberty here, and we're going to switch over to item number 19, dispose of it. That way we can spend all our time on your items. So we're just going to skip over. It's a quick first reading. Item number 19 is ordinance number 1645. Mr. Groot, can you read that by title only, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. An ordinance of the City of Oviedo, Florida, relating to sidewalk cafes, providing for purposes and intent, providing for definitions, providing for applications, providing for requirements, providing for regulations, providing for processes and procedures, providing for permit expiration, renewal, suspension, and revocation, providing for complaints, reporting, remedies, and enforcement, providing for implementing administrative actions, providing for a savings provision, providing for conflicts, severability, codification, correction of scrivener's errors, severability, and an effective date. That's the ordinance by title, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Groot. Mr. Cobb.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request for the council to adopt processes, procedures, and regulations for sidewalk cafes as accessory uses located adjacent to principal uses on public sidewalks, plazas, and other public rights-of-ways. The proposed ordinance provides for outdoor eating opportunities. Outdoor cafes encourage pedestrian traffic within certain areas of the city. Where it's going to be the most applicable is where the city's zoning regulations allow for zero building setback and such that the seating and the tables would be located within the public right-of-way. A sidewalk cafe permit will be required for each business wishing to place outdoor cafe equipment onto the right-of-way. The initial permit would be approved by the City Council, with the annual renewals being approved by staff, subject to no changes being made to the initial permit. All sidewalk cafes will be required to maintain a 4-foot unobstructed pedestrian zone to allow for pedestrian passage. The hours of service will be the same as the principal use, as once again, this is an accessory use. The city attorney did participate with the staff in preparing the ordinance. The city attorney and the staff both recommend adoption. It is recommended that the city council schedule a public hearing for Tuesday, January 17th, 2016.
Thank you, Mr. Kopp. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to schedule ordinance number 1645 for a public hearing on January 17, 2017 at approximately 6:30 p.m. here at Oviedo City Hall in the Oviedo City Council Chambers, 400 Alexandria Boulevard, Oviedo, Florida, 32765.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Mr. Pollack, you have the floor. Councilman Pollack, excuse me.
I'm good with this ordinance. I think it's much needed.
Deputy Mayor?
No worries. Looks good.
Councilman Britton?
Good.
Councilwoman?
I have a lot of thoughts, but I will talk with staff about them. I don't think it would require changing the title of the ordinance, which I believe means that it does not need to come back for a first reading.
All right. Mr. Cobb, I'm going to add just a few things, food for thought, and by me saying these, I might hit a whole bunch of questions that others have. The charges, the yearly permit fee, things like that, I just don't know if I'm comfortable with that. I mean, I can understand, an initial fee, we get them all set up, and a yearly inspection to make sure nothing's changed, but I'm not quite sure we have to burden everybody with a fee for that. It's something in my mind that we'd want to promote in certain areas, and I don't want to be a hindrance to restaurants wanting to do that, unless I can be convinced at a later date that there's a precedent and a reason why. Reading it, I just doesn't make any sense to me. But there's a host of other little things that are in there, but I think sitting down with yourself over the last month or so and talking about some of them, I'm getting comfortable with it. It's just those fees. All right. Anything else from anybody for the good of the order? Hearing none, I will call the vote. Motion on the table is to schedule a public hearing January 17th here at City Council Chambers for ordinance number 1645. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I'll ask the council real quick, what is your pleasure? Did we want to go on to the LPA appointments, dispose of that, and then the last item we can pay all of our attention? Yes?
Yes.
Councilman Britton?
I have no.
Either way? Councilman Pollack?
Either way.
Okay, let's move on. Let's just dispose of it, and then our agenda is done, and we can put all our attention to what all these folks have come down for. Item number 21 is the annual reappointment or appointments to our LPA board and I believe our police pension board. So let me start with police pension. I think there's one up for reappointment. And so why don't we dispose of that real simple? I'd like to take a nomination for the police pension board.
I nominate Catherine Haig-Leach. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Sounds good to me. Is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion seconds. Since there are no other applicants, I will just call the question. All in favor of reappointing Catherine, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. LPA board, we have 2 open seats. Let's move on to the reappointment first. We have our long-term member, Kathy Moore, looking to be reappointed. I'd like to entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes?
make a motion to reappoint Kathy Moore.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion?
No, sir.
Hearing none, all in favor of the reappointment of Kathy Moore, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Okay. Needed at least 4 for that to carry. Moving on, we have vacant seat. Let's take vacant seat number 1. I'd like to give me some nominations, guys.
Mr. Mayor? I'd like to make the first nomination of Tommy Minton.
No seconds yet. Let me get a few in case there's more. Any other nominations for the first seat?
I'd like to nominate Brian Smith.
Any other nominations for seat 1?
Nominate David Scott, please, or David Scott Pollock, please.
David Pollock?
Pollock.
Any relations? No, I know there isn't. I'm only kidding. That would disqualify you right off the bat. Any other nominations? For seat 1, I am going to close the nominations, and I will take them in the order that they were nominated. All in favor of Tommy Minton, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
How many was that? 1, 2, 3? Okay. All in favor of Brian Smith?
Aye.
1. All in favor of David Pollock?
Aye.
1. Now, Tommy Minton is appointed to the LPA on seat number, I don't know which seat number it is. All righty, let's move on to the second vacant seat. Do the same thing. We'll take nominations. I'll start on my right this time.
I'd like to nominate Brian Smith.
Brian Smith. Any other nominations?
And I'll nominate Mr. Pollock.
David Pollock. Any other nominations?
Mr. Mayor?
Uh-huh.
I'd like to nominate Makisha Allen.
Allen. Alrighty. Any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll take them in the order in which they were presented. All in favor of Brian Smith?
Aye.
1. All in favor of David Pollock? Aye. 1, 2, 3. All in favor of Makisha Allen?
Aye.
1. David Pollock has the seat. Congratulations to everybody, and thank you to everybody who applied. Please watch the website. Seats do come up. People do move on. Matter of fact, on this seat, one was Mr. Pollock's to our right, and one was somebody who resigned. So it does happen, and stay informed and stay
Mr.
involved.
Mayor?
Yes.
I just wanted to say that list of candidates
Oh, they
for
were
the-
good
for the
candidates.
LPA, there were some outstanding, talented folks in there. So as Mr. Mayor just said, if you didn't get up there, that's a 7-member board. People do leave, and every one of the people that applied for that was certainly qualified to be up here. So it's good to know you got some good people in the, willing to serve on that very important board. So congratulations to those who got on, and the ones that didn't, come back and see us as soon as you see another opening.
All righty. All righty, so moving on, we're going to go into our reports. Oh, no, I'm only teasing. Go on to item number 18. All righty, going backwards, we're on to our public hearing tonight, which is ordinance number 1644. We're going to break from tradition here because there's a lot of folks in the audience this evening. There's a lot of new faces. There's a lot who may not be familiar with the procedure, what we are actually here to discuss this evening. So the first course of business is just going to explain how the public comment works, and then I'm going to turn it over to the city manager and the city attorney, and they're going to explain why we're here. When it comes time for the public comment portion, the HOA does have an attorney here in the audience. The attorney wishes to speak for a bunch of you and also get some items on the record. So what I'm going to do is, again, breaking from tradition, we are going to go to the staff. We're going to go to the applicant. I'm going to go to the attorney and let him speak and get a lot of the items that he wants to get on the record. There may be some questions that he is going to ask of staff. There may be some questions that our staff will ask of our staff. So it's going to go back and forth a little bit like a courtroom, let's call it, because this is a court hearing. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. We can only make our decision, folks, on the items that are presented to us tonight. What's been posted on Facebook, what's been Twittered out, what's been in the next door neighbor, whatever that thing is called, all of that is completely irrelevant. A site plan that's floating around out there is completely irrelevant to the hearing tonight. So I just want to keep that, everybody to keep that in mind. Getting to the public comment portion, many of you have put in requests to speak forms. I will get to each and every one of them. It will come after the attorney and the staff are finished with our staff, and everybody is complete, and they sit. The applicant, before I start public comment, may have one last time to come up and address any of the concerns that they've heard, get their items on the record. Then I will go to public comment. The way public comment works is public comment is to the item only, to the item. We try to limit everything to 3 minutes. We ask that you do not become duplicative. It happens very quickly, folks, and then we have 10 people coming up saying the same thing. It's okay if your item's been brought up to stand up and just tell me to read your name into the record and that you're against it. I can do that for you. And then we can move on, so that way we keep the hearing moving on. And then what will happen is after the public comment, when everybody's had their chance, I will close the public comment. That'll be the last talking from anybody in the room except for the council. Then it comes up to us, like you've been observing this evening. I'll ask for a motion. We'll get a motion. There'll be discussion. The 5 members of council may have more questions for anybody, the applicant, the HOA attorney, since you're coming up to speak on the record, we may get called back up, our staffs. And that's how this works. It doesn't become the English Parliament. So, let's just keep that in mind. That's for courtroom drama on TV. All righty? We're all friends. We're all neighbors. We all have the same goal for our city. We all love our city. That's why you're all here, and that's why we do what we do. And if we do it in a respectful manner, you'll be surprised at what the outcomes become. So at this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Groot to read ordinance number 1644 by title only. And then Mr. Groot, Mr. Cobb, I know you have a presentation. Why don't you run through that so everybody understands what we're here for tonight and what we can decide on this evening, and then we'll go into the hearing. Mr. Groot?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. An ordinance of the City of Oviedo, Florida, amending the official zoning map to change the zoning district of approximately 2.76 acres located on the south side of Clont Street and on the east side of Lake Jessup Avenue from residential R1 to office commercial OC, providing for legislative intent, providing for implementing actions, providing for non-codification, providing for the correction of scrivener's errors, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. That's the ordinance by title, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Groot. Mr. Cobb?
Thank you, Mayor. Linda, would you please pull up the map for the zoning map amendment, please? Mayor, this is a request for the City Council to amend the official zoning map to change the zoning district of approximately 2.76 acres from residential R1 to office commercial OC. The subject properties are located on the east side of Lake Jessup Avenue and the south side of Clont Street. What we pulled up here on the very first slide, on the left side of the screen, you will see that the future land use of the proposed property is office. That's what the pink area is. It's office. The current zoning of the property is R1 single-family residential. The current zoning is not consistent with the comprehensive plan future land use designation. Therefore, the applicant has asked or requested a zoning map amendment to change the zoning of the property. And Linda, if you'll flip to the next screen, please. To change the zoning for the property from the R1 to the office commercial. Now, the office commercial zoning district is compatible with the comprehensive plan future land use designation of office for the property. When you're looking at a change of zoning, you basically ask 3 things. The first question is it consistent with the comprehensive plan? Well, in the case of the existing condition, no, it's not. In the case of the requested zoning district, yes, it is. The second thing you look at is it compatible with the surrounding area, with the zonings of the surrounding area? And the staff has prepared a staff report, and their findings revealed that it was. And then the last thing is you look at the uses. Are the permissible uses compatible with the surrounding area? The staff, once again, evaluated the uses of the OC zoning district, and based on their findings, that they found that they were. And so the staff recommends approval of the zoning map amendment to office commercial for the subject property. The local planning agency conducted a public hearing. on Tuesday, November the 15th, 2016. And thereat, they also recommended approval of the change of zoning to office commercial. It is recommended that the City Council conduct a public hearing and adopt ordinance number 1644.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Mr. Groot, can you perhaps just briefly discuss with everybody comp plan zoning, and
Sure.
we'll keep it in simple terms.
Very, very quickly, very simply, Mr. Mayor. Let me just first point out, if the applicant hadn't applied for something to change the zoning, the city would need to do it administratively anyway. The city's comprehensive plan, like the comprehensive plans of 400 other cities throughout the state and the 67 counties of Florida, are the land use constitutions of each jurisdiction. That's the guiding document for land use decisions in every jurisdiction. Zoning is like the statutes, and as you all know, statutes have to be consistent with the Constitution. So right now what we have is a statute, a zoning district, which is inconsistent with the city's constitution, the comprehensive plan. That's illegal. Section 163.3194 of the Florida statute says that's illegal. You have to make them consistent. And even if they aren't consistent, the comprehensive plan prevails over the zoning. So this really would have to be done administratively if there wasn't an applicant behind it. And if there's any questions about that point, please let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Groot. I do appreciate that. Let me ask one last question before we continue on, and I will ask this of Mr. Cobb and Mr. Groot. Is there any other submission from this applicant, any site plan, anything that staff has that's been reviewed other than this comp plan change?
This is the only application that we have.
Now,
This zoning map amendment.
let's talk about this. The residents in the audience are obviously very concerned about a project that's rumored to be going on the corner. If, after these hearings, assuming that there is a submission, walk us through the process.
If there is a submission for development approval, the applicant will have a professional designer, most likely will be a professional engineer, to prepare plans that will detail the development of the property. Those plans will be submitted along with an application form and the appropriate fee, at which time it will be entered into the staff's log, and the staff will begin a review process. The review process is divided into two phases. One is sufficiency, the second is compliance. The sufficiency review is a very short review. It is one to say whether or not we have all of the information we need to do the compliance review. We want to make sure that the applicant has provided everything that's required on the application package. Once the project is found sufficient, then we will move into the compliance review. And that's where the staff is going to look at the project as far as its compliance with the city's land development code, its engineering standards manual, its comprehensive plan, all of the different regulations that the city has that govern the development of the land. Once that review has completed, depending on what type of requests are necessary, in other words, if the application requires any type of deviation to the city's land development code, there is the possibility that it would return to the city council. If the deviations were less than 20%, then the land use administrator would be able to handle the approval. However, if there are any deviations greater than 20%, then it would come to the city council for approval. The city council will also be the approving body for any architectural designs. The staff will be reviewing the plans for architectural compliance as well. Once all that information has been dealt with, then we will move into the building permit process, where they will be under they will have to comply with the Florida Building Code, and they will work with the city's building department in order to do that. Then the last thing, of course, is the certificate of occupancy, which is set. That's when the city finally says this building is safe for people to go into, and it's met all the different regulations. So they've got quite a bit of work to do that they have not started. This is basically the first step to get the zoning in compliance with the comprehensive plan.
And can I add one thing there, Mr. Mayor?
Sure, of course.
It would be inappropriate for the city to ask for any of that at this point in time also. This is a pure rezoning application, so it would be inappropriate to say, let us see your building permit, let us see your site plan, let us see your engineering plans or anything like that.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Groot. And Mr. Cobb, it's safe to say that during all of those reviews, there is a voluminous amount of traffic studies that'll need to be done and submitted to staff?
Oh, yes, sir. We will be, the city does still require developers to meet concurrency, and that's basically the fancy term to say that the city's infrastructure can serve the development at the proposed intensity. And so they'll be looking at traffic, they'll be looking at the water demand, the sewer demand, the trash, the drainage, all the different aspects that go into it. But traffic will be, yes, sir, traffic is always a sensitive item that gets a very strict review.
And it's also safe to say that once those are submitted to us, that not only does our staff review it, but we send it out for a peer review, do we not?
Yes, sir. We have consultants that assist us with the especially with the traffic review.
All right. Okay, so that's the process, folks. And I just wanted to make sure that we had gotten that all out at the very beginning, and that way we all have an understanding of what we're really here for tonight, because we don't want to get the cart ahead of the horse. Mr. Cobb, does staff have anything else to add?
No, sir.
Nothing at this time. Okay. Applicant, is the applicant here? Name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Rebecca Wilson, 215 North Eola Drive with Lowndes, Drostick, Jostler, Cantor, and Reed. As your staff summarized, our request is for a rezoning of 2.76 acres that has a future land use of office. It has had that future land use designation since 1991. Our request is to change the zoning to be consistent with that land use that has been on this property, again, since 1991. We are asking to go from residential to office commercial, consistent with the office comp plan policy. As you can see on the screens that the staff provided, that to the east and south is downtown mixed use and commercial. Also to the west is office. To the north is residential. So you have a confluence, really, of different land uses and zonings in this area. We chose office commercial because it is office and neighborhood commercial. Your comp plan specifically states that this is what is to be used when you are on the edge of a commercial area but close to a neighborhood. That's why it's called neighborhood commercial. Again, that's what's pending tonight, the rezoning of 2.76 acres. We have your staff support, and they put into your packet, so into the record, all of the data and analysis that was provided by us and then reviewed by them that found this to be consistent with the comp plan. In addition, we had a hearing before the Planning and Zoning Board, and they also recommended in favor of this rezoning. I do want to address, Mayor, what you brought up specifically, and that is that there was a pre-application with your staff for a development on the corner of Mitchell Hammock Road and Central, for which this would be a portion of that. And we're happy to answer any questions you have about that. But as you properly stated, really what's pending tonight is the rezoning. And anything dealing with setbacks, access, lighting, all of that would be dealt with in the way that Mr. Cobb described. One more important thing to point out, and you can see it on this map, there's a little notch in the property, and that's a well field. And your city has very specific and strenuous well field protection, so that there is a large amount of property impacted by that well field that we can only use as open space and stormwater. So much of this property, although we're not into site planning, because of your other ordinances and regulations, is not developable for building sites. With that, I'm happy to answer anything you have to say. Mayor, I heard how you set out how you want the process to go, so I will, I guess, speak after the attorney for the HOA does. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cobb, does staff have any other presentation for us before I move into Mr. Hand?
Actually, Mayor, there is one thing I meant to tell you about. On the dais tonight, you do have these folders. These are correspondence that we have received. The city clerk has a copy of all these correspondences, and she has them for the record, so they will be made part of the record tonight. Just wanted to acknowledge that we received those correspondences, and we have them for you there.
Does Mr. Hand have a copy of all this, or he can make a request for one, I'm assuming?
I'll be happy to share mine with him if he would like it.
Great. All righty. Mr. Hand? Sir, you told me your credentials, so I'm sure you know the procedure.
Yes, sir. Andrew Hand, 2300 Maitland Center Parkway, Suite 100. Shepard Smith & Cassidy is my law firm. I am here today on behalf of the Whispering Woods Homeowners Association. So good evening to you all. Happy to be here. What the association is asking for, first of all, I'm not here to, on behalf of the association, tell you that the property should not be rezoned. I'm not here to tell you that it's inconsistent with your comp plan, proposed zoning that is. What I am here to tell you and what the association is asking for is to either table this item to allow the association to interact with the developer and address some concerns that the association has, or to assign RP zoning, which is the association's position that this is a more compatible zoning than OC. The reason being is that whenever you do a zoning, as you stated, Mayor, it's not a site plan that you're looking at. It's not the specifics. General zoning categories, general uses. Some of these uses under your code are uses by right. And as I understand, in looking at your land development code, as long as a use by right or a listed permitted use within your table of uses meets all the criteria within your land development code, it's administratively passed. And then, of course, you have your tier review up to 10, 20, 30%. 20% comes back to City Council. When we look at OC zoning and look at that table, there are several uses in there. Repair shops, funeral homes, to name a few, that the association feels are not compatible with the association zoning. Again, I said the association's immediately to the north. And in fact, I believe to the south, looking through the staff report, there are some automobile repair shops immediately to the south in the more intensive commercial use. If the zoning was to pass, and I understand that the developer is not proposing a repair shop by any means, but as we all know from the 2007-2008 situation, developers come and go. And even if this were to be built in a few years, things might be a little bit different. So if something were to come before you that is not really a use that's compatible, something that's not good for the city, as long as it met the code, it could go through and without any review, without your review or without the review of future council. And so that's why we just want to take a step back and allow the Homeowners Association to address some of the concerns. I do have just a few questions on how some of the compatibility was done for staff, and I can save that for later. But what I would like to do is, with me tonight is Jim Ford, who's a professional planner. I would just like to call him as a witness. I understand your procedure is a little bit different than what I'm used to. I was going to ask him a few questions about his credentials and so forth. I think he can volunteer those just to qualify himself as an expert. And he has a presentation that he's prepared for you that will at least discuss his findings and why he believes it's inconsistent with your current. Well, not inconsistent, but why RP is more compatible than OC. So I'd just like to call Jim Ford, if I could, please.
Sure.
While he's coming up, can I ask a question?
Sure, right ahead.
Just a clarification, if we could keep the alphabet soup to a minimum, I'm not sure what RP is, so could you explain that?
Residential profession.
I know what it is, but I want, there may be others that don't know what it is.
If I could, very quickly. The requested use is OC, which is office commercial. RP is residential professional. Some of the uses are similar because they allow a mixture of residential and commercial uses. It's slightly less intensive basically the same, but someone who is going for an OC might have to go through a few extra steps for to get through a zoning if it wasn't consistent. There's a few less uses by right, and RP is more of a transition zoning, in my review of your code at least. And I'm sure Jim can explain a little bit more.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Jim Ford. I'm formerly the Planning and Zoning Director in Brevard County.
Can you just speak more directly into the mic?
I have about 15 years' experience as Planning and Zoning Director in Brevard County. I was for 25 years the elected property appraiser in Brevard County, and I've come to live in the beautiful city of Oviedo 4 years ago to be close to my grandkids.
Great.
Since that time, I've endeavored to work in the area of commercial real estate, and I'm president of the State of Florida Land Use Solutions Incorporated. Could I approach the, what do you might want to? I want to commend the city for
Can we
trying
just
to
get the, I'm sorry, one second. Can we just get the door closed to the council chambers? We're getting feedback from the television through the microphones up here.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I don't think the city clerk caught your address for the record.
156 Winding Oaks Lane, Oviedo.
Officer Walton, I'm sorry. Could we just close the doors? Thank you. We're getting feedback from the television up here.
I'd like to commend the city for trying to upgrade the appearance of the intersection, but I don't think that it should be done at the expense of the nearby residential areas. Now, there's no question but the existing zoning is inconsistent with your comprehensive plan. But what can be consistent by color on a map may not be compatible based on your policies and guidelines that you have within the text of your comprehensive plan. So if you look at the first page of the handout, it talks about commercial and office districts. If you see the first one there under office districts is residential professional office district. And after that, it's neighborhood commercial office district, which is the classification that's being requested this evening. Now, I don't think that 30 years ago, the planner that colored that map and put the designation of office there next to the residential area was thinking about anything more than a residential professional office district, which is also a zoning category that would be in compliance with the plan. So it's an oversimplification to simply say that that all you're doing tonight is rezoning the property to comply with the plan. There's another category that complies with the plan, and much better so in terms of being compatible with the surrounding residential area. The OC category is somewhat of a hybrid in my view. If you'll notice there on the real estate for sale flyer that I handed out, it says that the land use allows RP and OC zoning, and then it says the OC would allow ACLFs, office, retail, and other uses.
Mr. Mayor, I hate to interrupt, but There's one copy over here being shared by Mr. Cobb, I, and city staff, and the applicant. And so we don't have anything to look at.
Do you have any additional copies to
No,
provide us?
no, just the one I'm working from.
Here, pass this down, I'll share with
Well, Mayor, would you mind?
We want you to have your copy.
Yeah, Mayor, would you mind if we, can we just go make some copies of it, and that way we can...
We'll take a 5-minute recess.
Thank you, Mayor.
Send them the bill for the copies. All righty, we'll just let everybody get settled. Vivek, you good? Barbara? Good? And if we can just get the door to the chamber closed, please. Thank you, everyone. All righty, Mr. Cobb, everybody has copies who needs copies?
Yes, sir.
All righty, sir. Continue.
In my rush to get started, I failed to mention the fact that I have a bachelor's degree in business administration and a master's degree in city planning, both from the University of Tennessee.
Uh-oh.
I'm sorry.
No. Our city manager is very happy about that, so.
Okay. As I was saying, the uses that can be placed in the OC are obviously far more than could be placed in RP, and many of which would be clearly incompatible, including repair shops, convenience stores, daycare centers, banks, grocery, group home. So, and in the handout, if you'll notice there where it talks about RP on the first handout, it says that it was designated to be a transition zone between intense commercial districts and residential districts. Now, if you don't have that here, I don't know what you have. On the neighborhood commercial office district, it says to accommodate low-intensity commercial uses with limited traffic generation and movements. Many of these uses that I've just read off here would not be considered low-intensity commercial uses. Now, from a traffic standpoint, I think a major concern is increasing traffic on Clance, which should be avoided at all costs, in my opinion. The city,
Sir, just keep it to the zoning. You're talking about traffic. We have no submission.
Traffic as a result of the rezoning.
Okay.
The city designates Clance as a local street, but it doesn't even have proper right-of-way for half of its length between South Lake Jessup and Central. It's simply there by what's paved. So it doesn't even meet the standards for local street. And further, the city doesn't have traffic counts on Clance. They don't have level of service established on Clance. And Clance is simply not a street to be used for commercial traffic in any way. In this area, these streets historically were obviously platted very, very narrow in width. Up the street 2 or 3 blocks, you have Hillcrest, and I know you're familiar with that. The city wouldn't even allow Evans Square to have an ingress and egress onto Hillcrest. So the pictures I have included here show Hillcrest and they show Clance, and they're very similar in terms of their capacity. Now, to your credit, in your comprehensive plan, and many communities don't do this, you did make an effort to define compatibility. And that's on the next to the last page of the handout from your comprehensive plan, 1-1.1.16. And if you go down through those items, you're clearly, with this particular proposal, you're clearly down at 4, if not 5, number 4, if not number 5, which is significant conflicts with pre-existing adjacent use and incompatible with adjacent land use. So I think it's clear that the RP would much more comply with your definition of compatibility in your adopted comprehensive plan. Now, while we're on this subject, and I noticed some of these compatibility components here talk about that can be mitigated through project design. Well, the unfortunate part about it is that here today we don't have the ability to talk about project design. All we're talking about is zoning. So I wanted to mention something to you that I would think you'd be well to consider, would reduce a lot of the controversy on a lot of these rezoning matters. And that's some communities have a concept plan which can be adopted binding along with the zoning to deal, and I'm not talking about an expensive plan drawn by an engineer, just a concept plan that shows possibly some buffers here, the driveways would or would not be here, that sort of thing. And where you could approve that along with the zoning, and everybody could rest assured that those are not going to be issues down the road. Because as was pointed out by the attorney, your staff is possibly the only entity that's going to look at any site plan in the future on this project. The homeowners will have no input whatsoever. And these are things that I think that the elected officials that are here elected to represent and protect the residential areas should be making decisions about. Now, one last thing I want to bring up is about precedent. We all know about precedent with zoning and how rezoning can establish precedent. On the map up there, and I put one on in the handout, you see on the west side of South Lake Jessup, about 2 lots up from Mitchell Hammock, you see a purple piece of property there. That was zoned, and I didn't get a chance to check and see when. That was zoned RP by the city sometime in the past, and I think it was zoned that way to indicate clearly that that is the proper transition to have there between commercial uses and residential uses. So I do not believe that the OC zoning is compatible, and I do not believe that it should be approved in this particular case. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Anybody?
Okay. Thank you.
I said no outbursts, remember? Okay.
Mayor, what I'd like to do, and I had mentioned some questions I had for city staff, under your comprehensive plan, 1.114, there are several different criteria that planners consider, and I know we haven't had any testimony this evening from any of the planners, but in the staff report, some of my questions, first of all, go to transportation. So if the transportation consultant is present tonight, I'd like to ask some questions of him or her.
Sure.
Okay. Where would I direct those questions?
Why don't you ask the questions? She can write them down, and then she'll come up and answer them.
Mr. Mayor, cross-examination and direct examination are 2 different things. So if city staff gets up and speaks, and Mr. Hand wants to cross-examine them, I think you've said that there's a mechanism to do that. But to direct exam staff, that's not appropriate in any respect. What he's asking to do is directly examine staff at this point in time.
I'll let you handle this, Mr. Groot.
So you should make your presentation and leave it at that for right now.
Well, sir, what my argument would be is there hasn't been any, we have a staff report here this evening
correct.
that has not been presented.
And the staff can leave it at that if they feel like it.
I have questions about what's been presented, so that would seem to circumvent the ability of them to testify in the first place if I have the right to cross-examine and I can't ask them questions on what is in the report. That seems to be a due process violation in my mind.
If staff gets up and speaks, I think the position of the city is going to be that there's going to be some limited cross-examination allowed. Staff has not spoken at this point in time. I don't know what they're going to say, quite frankly, if anything.
If I have some questions about this report and how the results were come, how would I ask those questions?
You just did it. You called your own witness.
Staff has...
Mr. Mayor, the point here is unless you want to start process of allowing people to come up and directly examine staff, then this should end right now. Mr. Hand can make his argument, but in terms of calling staff as a witness, that's just I recommend that never be allowed. Cross-examination is another point. We've discussed that. But there is no cross-examination right now because no one's spoken.
Mr. Hand, I have to go with our city attorney. I don't think there's going to be anybody on the council who's going to go against him. So you have another avenue in which you can proceed. If not, have a seat. I'll open up public comments.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not going to argue, but just for the purpose of the record, I do want to state that, we do have a staff report where the staff has essentially testified and put forth information. And I have not been able to ask staff questions about what has been put forth. And apparently the decision that's made tonight is going to be made on this evidence. So therefore, I claim and assert that my client's due process rights are in violation. That being said, I have questions about transportation. I have questions about compatibility with existing and proposed land uses. I have questions about the consistency with the goals, objectives, and policies. And I have questions about zoning impact and scope of use. If those questions cannot be answered tonight, then I cannot ask them, and I will take a seat.
Just for the record, Mr. Mayor, there was a staff report presented. It is a record. It's part of the public record. Obviously, Mr. Hand's expert has had the chance to look at it because he got up and spoke about it. Now, if that's all that comes about, then so be it. I don't know if staff's going to speak or not. Just to make it clear.
All righty. Mr. Cobb, do you have anything to add?
No, Mayor.
The applicant have anything to add? Applicant, you have anything to add?
Thank you, Mayor. I was taking notes, and what I first heard is that the HOA attorney stated that the requested office commercial, OC, is compatible with the comp plan, and that then Mr. Ford weighed in that he and the neighborhood would just prefer RP. Well, that's not the test. That's not the legal standard. You have to evaluate competent substantial evidence before you, which, as Mr. Groot has pointed out, is your staff report along with our application that supports the rezone to OC. No evidence has been presented that OC is not consistent. And I want to be clear, OC does not allow automobile repair shops. You can ask your own staff that if you have that question. OC facilitates the combination of parcels with this piece of property and Mitchell Hammock to allow for parking for our commercial use. If you look at your CRA plan, this piece of property that we're requesting is in your CRA plan with the purpose to be redeveloped to enhance the city's commercial properties. In fact, your CRA plan talks about this entire area as a gateway and, in fact, wanting to encourage restaurants and parcel combination. And again, just quickly, the traffic, as Mr. Cobb pointed out, we did have to submit a traffic study to support our request in the rezone. It was found by our traffic engineer, and it is in your staff report. I'm sure it was peer reviewed, that there is available capacity for the proposed rezoning. And as we move into any further development, there will have to be a traffic analysis done by a certified engineer, reviewed by your city, and reviewed by the FDOT. Happy to answer any questions that you all have or anything that may come up during the public hearing.
Any questions? No? Mr. Hand, do you have anything else? Give you one more shot.
No, sir. I stand by the assertion I made a little bit earlier, and as far as due process rights, and I just request that the item be tabled so it can be looked at more and vetted with the HOA, or that the RP zoning be adopted this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. ahead.
I apologize. I meant to address the tabling. My client is more than willing to work with the neighborhood through the site planning process. We have a contract to close on this piece of property, and we would like to move forward with a hearing and a rezoning tonight. And as you all are aware, pretty much anything that is a significant site plan comes here because of a request for deviation. So it is our intent that this site plan will be back before you, and we're happy between now and then to work with the neighbors.
Well, since you opened that door, let me ask you a question, if I may. Putting your contract obligations aside for a moment, would you and your client be willing to commit to, within the next 30 days, that you have a meeting with the neighbors, and we can facilitate it here or at some public building, before any submission is made?
Absolutely.
And your client agrees to that?
Absolutely. Yes. 30 days, I mean, maybe it's 45, maybe it's mid-January. Okay, we can have the meeting as quick as we want. So yes, within the next 30 days.
Well,
probably 2 weeks.
they requested in their emails 30 days. So
It
at
will
a minimum,
definitely, probably be before the next 30 days. We will meet with them soon.
all right, we have the holidays, though, so let's just go through the calendar here. Why don't we say 45? That way it's mid-January, it gives everybody time.
We think we're going to submit quicker than that. That's why we want to meet quicker.
Right, but would you commit to no submittal until you meet with them? You can meet quicker, but, you know, if everybody's...
We can commit to that.
Okay. All right, thank you. Wait, before you sit, any other questions from council? I'm sorry, I threw that curveball out there. The fun of sitting in the center. All righty. Okay, now, as I said earlier, a lot of the questions I'm sure that everybody has have probably been discussed, asked, but everybody is free to talk. We try to limit everything to 3 minutes. We'll have a shot clock up. Linda, do you have the shot clock? Because we do have, I mean, I haven't counted them here, but there's a good 20 or 30 of them. So, I mean, if everybody wants to be here for an hour and a half or 2, we can. And if not, we'll try to get through them. So the first one that I have is from Mr. Rex Klontz, and just so everybody knows how we take these. We take these in the order in which they were given to the clerk, and the clerk has entered them into the record. So there isn't any favoritism in how we're changing them around and calling them. The only one I did call out of order was your attorney, because your attorney has to come up first. All righty? Mr. Klontz?
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Rex Klontz. I live at 6265 Lake Charm Circle in Oviedo. I grew up on Hillcrest Street, about 3/4 of a mile away from this property, and I am president of Klontz Farms, Inc., which owns the subject land. My grandfather purchased this land in 1937. At that time, there was no South Lake Jessup Street. There were farms to the west, groves to the east, and woodland north and south. It had 6 rental homes, according to the aerial photos in 1940. And during the 60s, those houses were reaching the end of their useful life, and we demolished them and hauled off the debris. It's interesting to note that in the 1940 photo, the property was cleared, virtually no trees. In 1943, my grandfather also purchased vacant land 450 feet northeast of this, which, according to our family tradition, he gave to Oviedo with the stipulation that it be used as a park in what is now Boston Hill Park. When Oviedo was forming the city waterworks in 1967, he donated the 2 well sites on Klontz Street to the city, along with right-of-way for piping. 30 feet was taken from the west side of this property for the right-of-way for Jessup to be pushed south, and 25 feet was taken off the north side for what would be later named Klontz Street in the early 70s. All this was before Mitchell Hammock was paved, starting back more than 50 years before Whispering Woods was platted in 1989. The city's community redevelopment area findings of necessity states the goal of the CRA is to rejuvenate blighted areas by enabling and stipulating new development, creating jobs, etc., unquote. This same CRA identifies this parcel as an example of blighted property. It includes photos of the property to justify the need to develop it as fill-in. In 2012, we purchased a small lot on the eastern edge of this property. And the house showed evidence, it had a house on it, and it showed evidence of recently being used for drugs. We demolished that dilapidated house. Almost annually, we've picked up 50-gallon garbage bags of trash that have been littered by people passing through. And I tell you this to make the point that we've been responsible landowners who have tried to be good neighbors and wait until the land could be used in a way that Oviedo would be benefited. We have not objected to any land use change around us, but we now find that we can be part of a well-thought-out development that will enhance the quality of life in Oviedo. It will help meet the economic development goals and seems very compatible with surrounding land uses. It replaces a parcel that the city has deemed blighted with water retention, plans for water retention and driveways on the western half, and very desirable behind the storefront parking on the eastern half. I would enthusiastically ask your approval for this change in zoning. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. Thank you, sir. The next written request I have is from Lori Report.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Lori Report. I live at 664 Long Lake Drive in Kingsbridge West. My husband and I moved to Oviedo from Honolulu, Hawaii in the year 2000. We chose Oviedo because of the wonderful nature of our neighborhood, our surrounding neighborhoods, and the relative lack of traffic and congestion. Since the year 2000, we have seen unmitigated growth in our neighborhood. We were very disappointed in what happened with the Oviedo One Park, which in my opinion is one of the reasons why we should approach this rezoning with a lot of caution. I very much support the attorney's proposal that we step back and we look at perhaps an interim method of proceeding as opposed to going directly to office commercial, go to something that is a little less intensive and might have less impact on our neighborhood. I cannot be for this proposal as it is today, although I do agree that that corner needs to be redeveloped as it is an entry into our city. I wish we would step back. I wish we would table it until the 17th of January. Give us all a chance to rethink. I must also say that I'm not alone in my neighborhood in being against this proposal. Thank you. I'm not a landowner, but I've been here for many years, and I do take pride in Oviedo. Good to you. My name is Lori Rapport, R-A-P-P-O-R-T.
Next written request I have is from Paul Varcholik.
My name is Paul Varcholik. I'm at 490 Veracliff Court. And I am not anti-development, nor am I against a property owner's rights. But what I am concerned about is the incursion of commercial real estate into areas currently zoned for residential use. A year ago, this same applicant requested and was granted a zoning change from R1 to PUD for a 10.5-acre property on South Lake Jessup, just up the street from the parcel in question. And now 30 new homes are being built surrounding the old Evans house. Now, that's perhaps 70 new vehicles that are going to be in and out of this area on a daily basis. I'm deeply concerned over the increased traffic that will be produced by these new homes, traffic that won't be fully felt until after these homes are completed and until after you've decided on the matter that's before you tonight. Traffic that will be exacerbated by additional commercial property along South Lake Jessup. Now, I have two daughters who walk to school along South Lake Jessup. And there are dozens of families in this neighborhood whose children do the same. I want them to be safe. Increased traffic puts their safety in question. I'm also concerned about the changing character of this neighborhood, a character that's jeopardized by zoning changes. And with respect, the surrounding neighborhood is not a gateway. It's our home. I ask, how will this rezoning help these neighbors? And how will this rezoning hurt these neighbors? Reading the memorandum from your city planner, from your planning manager concerning this ordinance, she states that the purpose of this zoning amendment is to change the existing zoning district from R1 to OC, consistent with the office future land use designation. That the existing R1 zoning is not consistent with the subject property's office future land use designation, and that the proposed OC zoning district is consistent with the property's future land use designation. But I ask you, is the zoning change consistent with current land use? And I have one final issue that I'd like to address, and that is when we discuss these issues, that the comprehensive plan is often cited. Is the comprehensive plan a guide or is it gospel? If it is a plan, is it not subject to change? Future planning does not have a 2020 vision. Should we not consider that when such applications are presented? The city's attorney just stated that the incompatibility between the comprehensive plan and the current zoning is illegal. So change the comprehensive plan. Is that impossible? The U.S. Constitution could be amended. Can't we change the city's comp plan? Or do we simply lack the will to do so? Thank you. V as in Victor, A-R-C-H-O-L-I-K, and it's Veracliff, V-E-R-A-C-L-I-F-F, Court.
Next written request I have is Sandra Bailey.
Bailey. I live at 136 Winding Oaks Lane. I've lived in Oviedo for over 20 years, and I moved here from Longwood because it was bulldozed and blighted. No offense against Longwood. I understand everybody says that we have to change that to commercial because in 1991, all those other colors were commercial, and this little last piece has to match it. It has to be compatible. My question is, why are those barrier pieces not compatible with the residential areas that are off of Klons, off of South Lake Jessup? Would it not be just as compatible to save those as a barrier to the existing commercial and residential property on Mitchell Hammock, as well as the new, yet it can't be compatible for the residents, but it's compatible for the new construction and the existing construction? That's my only question. I asked the city not to do it, so that we can at least have some kind of a sound and visual barrier to the current development on Mitchell Hammock as well as the new development. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next written request I have is Christine Buchholz.
Hi, I'm Christine Buchholz. I'm at 632 Forest Cove. To piggyback what Paul said a little bit, I have a son at Lawton Elementary. Ages 6 and 3 are my sons. One son goes to Lawton, the other one goes to Oviedo Methodist preschool. You may see me on my bike pretty much every single day through our neighborhood. So just to piggyback what he had said, the safety of our children is at hand here. We have Lawton at the end of the street. There's no school zones, there's no crossing guards, there's no flashing lights. And yet we're going to pull 1,500 extra cars down that street. According to cityofoviedo.net, Oviedo has become a preferred location to raise a family. The city was recognized as top 100 city to live by Relocate America. By Family Circle, it is known as the best town for families. And by Bloomberg Business Week as one of the best places to raise kids in 2013. That's what brought my family here, not these commercial properties. There's A-rated schools and numerous recreational amenities just steps away from residents' homes. The encroachment of commercial businesses infringing on our beautiful neighborhood is only going to make us another Waterford Lakes. According to OrangeCountyFlorida.net, the Waterford Lakes area has experienced substantial congestion issues due to increases in residential and commercial development. I ask that you please prioritize the beauty and charm of this town, which has made it so desirable for all these years, before you make the decision that will likely continue its demise. I would much rather live in a town that is known for its friendly people, ability to get around on bike or foot, and character versus an unsafe concrete jungle to avoid due to unsightly amounts of traffic and hustle. Our own city website says numerous recreational amenities just steps away from residents' homes. If your idea of recreation includes getting your car repaired, buying auto parts, or eating fast food, then I guess we're moving in the right direction. But I would prefer to invest in our families while not losing the safety, character, and charm of our beautiful town. If we do, we may never become a shopaholic's favorite town destination by families in the community but the families here in community will continue to be nurtured and prosper. Thank you.
Next, I have Linda Raby.
I don't have anything planned to say tonight, but I just wanted to say that I'm all in favor of progress in Oviedo, except when it comes to jeopardizing homeowners and what they put in their homes and what they expect in their community. I think Oviedo, I think because of progress, we've lost our uniqueness in Oviedo and our charm. And in my own opinion, I think it's becoming another Altamont Springs, which distresses me. Like I said, I'm all in favor of progress, but not when it compromises the way that we would like to live there. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I also have Mr. Ronald Raby.
Mayor, Council, my name is Ronald Raby, R-A-B-Y. I live at 486 Forest Trail, Oviedo. I just basically enjoyed what I've had to hear, both sides of this argument. We moved here 25 years ago when Oviedo was, Mitchell Hammock had just, Mitchell Hammock had just been paved. So, and the house we bought 3 acres, and it's partially wooded, and we had a lot of critters there, and we've enjoyed the country style of life in the middle of, not too far away from city life. And we'd like to see that maintained. We think it's a perfect part of the charm in Oviedo, Florida. So my request, or to join the request of the homeowners group, is to at least table this until the next meeting and give us a chance to meet with the applicant's counsel, I guess. I believe I heard her say they were agreeable to that. So that would be my request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raby. Next written request I have is from Mr. Clayton, Neil Clayton.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Despite my strange accent, I've been here for almost 30 years.
I didn't hear anything strange about it at all.
It's my chosen place to spend my days. Most of the issues I wanted to talk about tonight have been covered, so I won't bore you with any of those. The congestion, the lighting pollution that we're going to get from whatever goes from this location. I live at 660 Forest Cove in Oviedo. Once a year, we host something called the Great great place in the country, great visit in the country.
Great day in the
Great day in the country. Thank you.
There you go.
And people come, they're queued up. They come for that reason, because we have still country here, and we seem to be doing our very best to pave the place over. What we have is unique. I claim that a 100-year-old oak tree on somebody else's property is a community resource that ought to be protected. And so people, I don't believe, have full right to do whatever they want to with their property. The hanging moss that's hanging in Clontz Avenue, Clontz Street there, is a community resource. I like to walk down that street. I don't want it paved. I don't want it widened. I don't want a sound barrier there. There's a lady who lives on that street I had a long chat with, who lost a child a long time ago, a 3-year-old child, to a drunk driver on that street. The street hasn't been upgraded since. It's been paved, but that's all. And yet we're going to add countless cars down it. If you go to Mitchell Hammock on the way home in the evenings, it's queued up from what's now the Wawa all the way to Alafaya Trail, waiting to get through those lights. People are already using first Lake Jessup and then Clontz as a bypass. If we make Clontz any wider than it is, it'll be used not only for this project that's being proposed, but also as a cut-through, and I object to that. So the only thing we residents heard about this was about a month ago when the sign magically appeared on the property. We didn't even know it was going on, even though the developer and I'm sure the realtor involved have been working on it for a long, long time. We need time to talk to those people and to negotiate, and perhaps we can come up with something that's compatible for all of us. So we asked for a delay this evening, and we look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next written request I have is from Desta Horner.
Desta Horner, spelled D-E-S-T-A, last name H-O-R-N-E-R, 652 Forest Cove in Oviedo. Lady and gentlemen, before the meeting started, I was talking to your city, one of your land use people, and they pointed out that on the left-hand side, which is the current city usage plan, the greenish area, blue-green area there, that area was mixed use planning. So that is not part of our discussion today, because that's commercial use, residential use, whatever you want, professional use, it's mixed use. So all we're talking about tonight is that little strip of pink right there, and it's going to be the little strip of pink along Clontz to South Lake Jessup. Am I correct in that? That's all the zoning change you want tonight?
We don't want anything. It's what's being asked.
That's what I want to ask you, is in the material given to you by your staff, is that pink area the only zoning change you're asking tonight? It's being asked.
Can you answer the question? Or Mr. Collins?
The answer is yes.
So the only thing that we're discussing is that strip of land that connects between Clontz and South Lake Jessup. If the developer wished to put a large use of people on that corner, they're going to have extra parking in order to make that viable. That is an extremely busy intersection. Those people can get into to Stonehill, they can't get out. The only way they can get out is to go out through Clontz. Because once you're in there, you can't go east. Once you're in there, you've got to figure out a way to get going east again. You can get in, but you can't get out unless you put some kind of an exit back in the back and expand that to parking. Think carefully about what you want to do with that pink area. Maybe it would be best for this developer to make it a smaller thing so you don't have all of that traffic. But the main thing is you're going to put so much traffic on Clontz as people try to get out of that place that they got into on a one-way interest. So if you can't figure out a traffic solution at that, and I understand the traffic issue is going to come up in the site planning, but you can look at that piece on the corner where Mitchell Hammock and Central meet. That is an extremely busy place. How are you going to get people in there and out of there? especially if they're going east. And most of our residential areas are to the east. People go in there, go to a restaurant, Lucer's, they come out, they have to go west on Mitchell Hammock. They can't get back east. What are they going to do? Go down to Lake Jessup and make a U-turn so they can get east? Do they want to go out onto Central and then have to go to the light, cross 2 lanes of traffic, get into the left turn lane, and then go east? This is a serious problem. And changing that zoning to pink simply enhances the problem by providing more parking space in the back area. So before you change that zoning for pink, think for a minute about what that could mean for the traffic on Mitchell Hammock and the danger of accidents on both Mitchell Hammock and Central. Thank you.
Thank you. Next request I have is William Wales.
Good evening. Bill Wales, 446 Forest Trail here in Oviedo. First of all, I want to thank you for your service. I know you don't get a lot of money for being up here, and you do a lot. And I sent a lot of emails, and there was quick responses, and I appreciate that. I would not normally be here, except for this issue has specific concerns for me, and been iterated quite a bit in the past. In fact, some of the people...
Did you give your address for the record? I'm sorry.
Yes, I did. It was
Okay.
446 Forest Trail.
Thank you.
And in fact, people sitting next to me that were not here for this event have since left, told me that this was of concern to them, and they were disappointed in what was going on. But the bottom line up front is we want to see development. We want to see the old Dunkin' Donuts revitalized. We want to see that corner revitalized. We just do not want to see the encroachment on residential neighborhoods, and we want that to happen. So one thing to be aware of is, so we want to delay continuance, to use a word previously, till June, perhaps as somebody mentioned before, or February 6th. So there's time to address that. So I have to speed up because I've got a little time. So we were only residents within 400 feet were officially notified. This has been like this for 25 years. There is no urgency to this. In fact, even the city manager said it's illegal. However, there is no move. If you look up there, there's pink on another corner, and there's no move for that. We're only concerned with this alone strip because somebody wants to do something with it right now. So it's okay, and there is time to wait and defer this. There are tangible impacts greater than that, or well beyond that 400 feet. There's going to be a decrease in property values if you rezone this office commercial. If you're a realtor, you realize if you're across from residential professional or you're across from office commercial, which could be a repair shop. Not all repair shops are automobile repair shops. It could be a tattoo parlor. It could be an e-cig shop. Once it's zoned office commercial, anything can go in there. Mr. Klontz could develop something. He could put the parking lot in there, but then something else could come in after that. He could sell the land. Will be like this for a long time. This decision has long-term ramifications. There could be a decrease in public safety. Traffic will increase. Your own study said it would go up by 1,500 people. I saw you raise your eyebrows on that earlier. It is what your study said. All right, I have to agree. There will be increased pollution. All right, I will speed up. So the city said there were 3 things they looked at. One was compatibility. If you look up there, compatibility on 4 sides, that is surrounded by residential people. You've heard from all people on all sides of that. Is it really compatible to put office commercial surrounded by 4 sides residential? So you have to think about that. It's not really compatible. Residential professional might be a little more compatible. Let's see. Due to there are existing traffic issues, as has been mentioned earlier, right now you're getting some cut through. The cut through will increase with 1,500 cars, additional cars.
Continue on. You could finish it. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. You can give me more time. Thank you. That's very kind of you, sir. So there will be 1,500 more cars. They're already cut through. We've heard of numerous talks about the traffic and how it's an issue right now. And I drive. People coming out of Lake Jessup, I understand there's supposed to be a lighting put on the end of Lake Jessup. Right now, people do not want to turn left out of Lake Jessup because they can't, because the traffic is so bad coming out of there. That development will make it worse, and it'll make that into the cut-through through Lake Jessup, and Klontz will increase significantly. Young children currently from the Vicky and Sharon Fort area go to school through that area, and they walk through that. That will be now a parking lot. Increased traffic, kids in danger. We've heard somebody died not recently, but in the past, and that's why those speed humps are there. So we need to think about it. While we say transportation is not an issue, transportation was actually addressed by the city manager for this rezoning. So it actually is a factor in this decision. And we just request that you defer it and delay it until the homeowners association and concerned residents can meet with the developer and city staff to look at alternative solutions that are compatible and does not hit everybody, doesn't hit the current residents in the pocketbook, doesn't harm them, but it still meets the needs of everybody in Oviedo.
Thank you, sir. Next written request I have is from Mr. Jim Ford. Oh, you already spoke. You want to speak again? You can speak as a resident, not as an expert. I did. You had a written request in here. Okay. Do you have anything to add as a resident, or no? All right, just checking. Want to give you the opportunity. John Kelly. John? Left? For the record, he checked off against. Margie Clayton? For the record, she checked against. Oh, here comes somebody from outside. Margie Clayton.
She's coming. She's right there.
No worries.
Sorry, we have a delay out there. Hi, I am Margie Clayton. I live at 660 Forest Cove, Oviedo. We are all here because we love Oviedo. We chose to live in Oviedo. We chose to come here because of its old world charm, because of the friendliness of the residents, because of the tree canopy and the quality of life. We all chose to be here. We came here before there was Oviedo on the Park, before this new development was here, before our medical center. We love Oviedo. We chose to be here. One of the crown jewels of Oviedo is our tree canopy, and I request Oviedo recommit itself to being good stewards of our natural resources and protect our city's character of old world charm. We can be another Winter Park. We do not have to pave over everything. We are not opposed to development, but not at the expense of increased traffic, noise and light pollution, and most importantly, the safety of our children. As residents of Oviedo, as your constituents and your voters, I request a delay in this rezoning meeting. We have not had a chance to talk to you, our elected officials, nor to vet our concerns with the developer. And there's no need to go forward with the rezoning until we're all, your constituents, are at peace with what's going forward. Thank you. M-A-R-G-I-E. Thank you.
Next written request I have is from Grace Clayton. You're up. Just name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. I am Grace Clayton, and I live at 660 Forest Cove. Excellent. So as I said, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Grace Clayton, and I've lived in Oviedo my entire life. My point here has been made numerous times tonight by many other concerned Oviedo residents. I'm a UCF student. It's finals week, and I have taken time from my studies to be here, as have many of my friends outside. We do not come to Oviedo from UCF to shop, to dine, or for nightlife. We have all that down on University Boulevard and in Waterford Lakes. We come here for the country charm, the natural beauty, and the friendly people. We come here for the hometown feel that so many of my friends are so homesick for. As I have said, Oviedo has a unique charm, and we the residents are here tonight to protect it. Oviedo is known for our trees, our chickens, our beautiful canopied, safe roads, and our country charm. Our sign right behind you has an oak tree and an orange on it. We call one of our city's greatest festivals Great Day in the Country. If this is not the image which the City Council feels our city of Oviedo should be known for anymore, then you should consider changing these things. And just so you know, we, the residents, your constituents, and your voters, do not feel the same way. On the subject discussed here, Oviedo residents are not anti-development. However, residents feel that this rezoning should be retabled so that the resident proposed RP rezoning can be adequately considered, not simply thrown out. This rezoning should also be tabled because we have not been given enough time to have our other concerns legitimately discussed by both the developers and the City Council, and we would like the chance to do so outside of a 3-minute time limit. Thank you.
Welcome. Next written request is from Wesley Costa.
Thank you. My name is Wesley Costa. My address is 66 Winding Oaks Lane in Oviedo. I am 200 feet away from the proposed development. I actually face what's going to happen. For the record, I wanted to show council members and the mayor the pictures that my property faces. This is the canopy that we just talked about. As a new Oviedo homeowner, I've lived here for 3 years. I'm also supportive of development, but I'm also came to this region particularly for the family friendliness and excited to have 2 kids in growing up here with a new family. But my biggest concerns would be here the removal of the buffer that exists between Clontz and Mitchell-Hammock, along with the impact if a parking lot does go there. Let me just share with you guys a little bit of the current issues we face on Clontz that will be escalated if there is a development there. Clontz is currently already used as an access road to Sharon Court and the subdivision down there. That temporary path, unfortunately, is completely trashed with beer cans, garbage, and leftover furniture. I'm consistently picking up garbage at the end of Whispering Woods subdivision. In addition to trash, every morning there's a lineup of landscaping company trucks picking up folks from that subdivision there. So traffic is already a problem, Clontz. Furthermore, we all know that there's a lot of problems with that subdivision that backs up to our community. Unfortunately, there's been, this year an officer-involved shooting, a homicide of a 3-year-old boy. It's all very unfortunate and concerning on how the crime will be moving forward. In regards to the noise level, it's already a problem. We hear loud music from that side, and I can even hear from Ale House when there's live music there. I don't know what would happen if this comes in and the impact that's going to be when all that buffer is out. So I please ask support our HOA and table it so we can address these concerns with the developer.
Next written request is Paul Bassini. Name and address for the record. Paul?
Paul Buscemi, 629 Clarendon Court, Winter Springs. My interest in coming here is 2 parts. Wesley is my son-in-law, and I also was his realtor. I'm a realtor in Oviedo. It's very popular. It's a great city. People as a destination, as people earlier said. So the part that I'm having trouble with how I could justify to future residents is the part where it's office commercial versus secondary alternative of residential professional. I believe that's the other alternative. So I guess my concern would be, has it been established as that would be sufficient for this developer's project to fit in the residential professional? I don't know. I haven't heard that end of it. And based on that, I'm against it tonight or tabling it so that we could see if that other alternative is more viable. It will affect property values if someone knows. And in 20 years of realtor, I'll give you an example. I had someone on, people know Tuscarora Road, who came to me, bought a home 15 years ago, and the traffic changed, and my own broker has said, when you go to sell it, it's 15 or 20% less you could get for your property value if it turns into a busy road. Buscemi. Clearn, Clarence Court.
Next written request I have is Philip Miller.
Thank you. Philip Miller, Philip with one L, M-I-L-L-E-R, 766 Kingsbridge Drive here in Oviedo. And I'm a Florida currently licensed professional engineer, 66043. But I'm speaking here as a resident. I'm not hired by anybody. I urge you to vote against this resolution to rezone the property for the time being. I'm against the project as has been presented to date with the information that you have on the website, some of which I downloaded a couple hours before we came over here. Primarily, I'm only going to talk about the deteriorating situation at the intersection of Mitchell Hammock and Central Boulevards. And the fact is, the city, we're generating too much traffic already. There's a lot more trips coming soon with the rest of the construction on Oviedo on the park. The intersection as it is can't handle the traffic that's in it now. The easy improvements have been made over the last several years that have actually done a lot to improve the way that intersection operates. The cheap solutions are gone, and there's no room left to make any major improvements. And we simply have too much traffic generation in the region already, and that's already in the pipeline to come on in the next year or two. We really need this serious. I realize you said traffic is coming later. There's no way with reasonably priced solutions to accommodate any additional traffic to be generated beyond what's already been approved and is able to be developed over the next couple of years. Even for the accesses in and out, the right-in, right-outs off of Central and Mitchell Hammock that are proposed, I see every morning, for example, down at Wawa or at some of the intersections where we have curb cuts close to the signalized intersections. In theory, they don't cause traffic obstacles. In practice, they do because of waiting 2 or 3 or 4 light cycles to get through. Once the traffic opens up, everybody drives presumably legally, but at as high speed as possible to finally clear the intersections to get through and then wait for people to pull off their curb cut to go get a cup of coffee. This is adding more of that, and it's really bad practice. One could argue, okay, we won't use that. Instead, we use Lake Jessup Boulevard and Clance Road, but it's a region-wide problem. It's not a local problem. Then you have some of the other issues that have been brought up by other residents that are here. So regardless of what we do for the region and area, I think this is really a good time to stand pat for a bit of time, see what happens with traffic generation in the region, give us a chance to readjust from being a small country town to, frankly, quite a more urbanized area than it was already, and see what we can do to make further improvements afterwards. Because I think it really needs to be, further improvements need to be designed as a citywide, if not a part of a countywide improvement in the transportation plan. And it's not a matter of moving a curb cut, increasing a radius, or, God forbid, adding another traffic signal somewhere. That's my comments.
Good to see you, Bill. I have one last written request, but it's very hard for me to read it. It looks Jim, and I can't read the last name. It's P-R-E Richardson? All righty, thank you.
Jim Richardson. I live at 306 Clance. My concern is not what you do today about the zoning. My concern is the traffic and the paving of Clance and Norma Avenue. We've been doing that since I paid my impact fees in 1987. And it's high time that we pave that road and stop the filth and the dirt. The semi-tractor trailers are using the chip company, what's the mulch company?
Bowling Forest.
Are using Norma and Clance now to avoid having to pull out onto Mitchell Hammock. So they come around Norma up Clance, either turn left on South Lake Jessup to pretend like they're doing something in the neighborhood. I don't know what they're doing. And then they go on up and, to 434 and turn right or left up there. And this is going on all the time now with this traffic. They're avoiding the intersection of 434 and Mitchell Hammock by traveling Norman Clance and then cutting back on South Lake Jessup or on up to 434 to avoid that light. We need to do something with the paving of the road and widening of it. You 2 cars can't pass in there. It's a mess.
Thank you, sir. As mentioned, that is the end of the written request that I have. Is there anybody else who'd like to address council on ordinance number 1644 that hasn't already been said? I don't know. Now, first, that looks a little painful.
Yeah, it was. Thanks. Broken playing football. My name is Jacob Romig.
Did the team win?
No, after I left the game, we lost.
Just name and address for the record.
My name is Jacob Romig. I live at 749 South Lake Jessup Avenue. We've been Oviedo residents for 15 years, previously in unincorporated Seminole County and Dunhill. My wife grew up in Oviedo, went to Jackson Heights Middle School, went to Oviedo High School, and her favorite street ever was South Lake Jessup Avenue, and we thought it was a dream come true when we were able to buy property on South Lake Jessup Avenue. And folks that come over to our house just remark how close we are to Mitchell Hammock and yet how quiet it is. And if you've driven down Lake Jessup Avenue, or I would invite the council, you're welcome to stop over for some drinks or food or whatever anytime and experience it for yourself.
As long as you don't make us play football.
No. But anyway, so that would probably be our biggest concerns. We have two boys, 12 and 9, and we like to play in the front yard. We take our dog for a walk. And I'll tell you, to the police department, by the way, if you guys really want to make bank on your traffic tickets, just come chill out at our house and take the radar gun with you. People speed down South Lake Jessup all the time. So anyway, that would be a concern for us, just as a family, is that that noise buffer would potentially go away if that were turned into a parking lot, that we wouldn't have those trees there to buffer out the noise. I heard a lot of folks mention about the traffic, and really I got to thinking, boy, there would be a decent amount of folks that would try to cut through, and people do what they need to do to get in and out of parking lots. So those are some of the concerns. I know that traffic's on the table. It's for future thought, and this is just to rezone it. But this is a really good opportunity to just kind of hit the pause button for a second. I don't know if there, when we do a cost-benefit analysis, if we were to say, well, what's the cost with tabling this? I don't know what the cost is other than to the developer. With all due respect, that would be not my primary concern. So I think for the city, I think it's just important for us to say, well, what would it really cost for us to have to just table this for a little bit of time and talk through it some more and get some more input? So that's it. Thank you. Romig, R-O-M-I-G. No, R-O-M-I-G. Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to address council at this time? Going once. Twice. All righty, I'm going to close the public comment portion, and we will go back to the attorneys and let them have their discussion. Does the applicant attorney have anything to add? Then I'll go to you, Mr. Hand.
I don't want to belabor any points at this late hour, just to address once more the tabling. What's going forward tonight is the rezoning. We need this to continue to move forward. Again, we're happy to meet with the neighbors as we go into the site planning, which again will be before your staff and come once again before you. With respect to RP, we carry no particular water for OC. There's no nefarious reason we would like OC other than you all have an adopted use table. And in that use table, it says that you can use OC for parking that supports a commercial use. RP does not have that as an allowable use. It has it as a special exception. So that's the reason we chose OC. Once again, your staff has also found that to be compatible. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions you all have.
Any questions yet?
Mr. Mayor, I just have one question. So my question is, we don't even have an application for this project. All we have is what everybody has speculated on and saw on Facebook. So you guys would still have to bring the city an application, correct?
Yes, sir.
So my question to you is, and I understand, having sat here for so many years, why it might be time sensitive to get something done, but we don't even know if that's what it is. So how, somebody just brought up the point, 30 days, whether we rezoned you tonight, is it that critical to your moving forward with this?
It is, because we have contracts on each one of these different parcels, the one that's pending before you tonight, also the ones at the corner of Mitchell Hammock and Central. And so in order for us to execute on those contracts, we need to know that we have the right to do something there, which this zoning lets us
And
know.
you're saying that these contracts could not wait till January 17th?
As they are drafted now, they
As you
could
have them
not.
drafted? Okay.
Correct. Nor do I know if they could change. And, you know, there's been a lot of talk about traffic and people giving opinions about the traffic on Mitchell Hammock and the traffic on Central. And I would just offer up that for the opportunity to redevelop what's it called, World of Wheels and Dunkin' Donuts, and this is an opportunity that we want to work with the city on. We understand that this is going to be sensitive, how we deal with traffic in the neighborhood, with connections in the neighborhood, with the buffering. That's why I mentioned that such a significant amount of this property isn't even developable. So I think people are going to be happy when they see.
So you're saying it could be in jeopardy if you didn't have the zoning now, that this could all, because of the way your contracts are written, could be.
Exactly. That's why we have worked so hard to get here today. Before
Understood.
the end of the year.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. I'm not sure if it's for you or for our city attorney.
If it's for her, we'll let her answer it, and if not, we'll get
Okay.
mine.
Well, it's a kind of hypothetical. Would you guys be willing to agree to limit the uses to those shown in the table for RP, even if we gave you the OC? And that's kind of how it becomes a hybrid question.
It's contract zoning. You can't.
Can't do that.
This is an application to go to a particular zoning district, and you can't. Whatever it is, whatever zoning districts assign, the uses that are allowed in that district are what's allowed. Can't condition them and negotiate them at this point.
A couple other things about RP. There was a statement by Mr. Hand, or I can't remember if it was Mr. Ford, that convenience stores would be allowed in OC. Well, that's not true, because you have to read your code as a whole, and there's location criteria for convenience stores that this piece of property wouldn't meet. Also, this piece of property, with the well-filled protection that you have to read into it, it is also only 150 feet deep. It's not deep enough, if you've ever tried to do development, it's not deep enough to build anything on. You can't fit a building and the required buffers on this piece of property. So although we don't have a site plan pending before you, because frankly that's just not how your code works. If your code worked that we brought it together, we certainly would have done that. But you have to read all of it, and there are not, I know that they're creating these concerns that we're going to bring all these different uses, but they physically don't fit and work with the other items in your code. In fact, when you read RP and you see, I believe it was Mr. Ford pointed out on your screen to the right, the purple piece of property is RP. Traditionally, your RP is used when there is a residential home, as you can see, that is a residential lot, where you say, you know what, it doesn't really make a lot of sense for this to still be a house. They should be able to put a lawyer's office, or it sounds like you guys already have enough lawyers in Oviedo. They can put a dentist office in that residential home because it's no longer really viable as a house. And so that is why it was considered by your planning and zoning, and I don't want to say it was denied, it wasn't pending, but it was considered by planning and zoning, and they still chose OC at that time because they didn't believe that was the purpose of the RP, to go on undeveloped property.
So was it then staff's recommendation that you guys proceed with OC versus RP after doing a pre-application meeting on this? Or was there pre-app on this?
Yes, we had a pre-application meeting, and we requested OC because we knew that we wanted to use this for parking to be compatible, to be used for our commercial that's going to go there on the corner.
Thank you.
I don't want to I don't want to say that your staff directed us to do anything. This was our application, and they supported it.
Anything else?
Well, is it, you mentioned the World of Wheels and the Dunkin' Donuts. Is this part of a conglomerate of stuff? And I guess my question to Mr. Groot is, are we allowed to consider the whole, or are we just to focus on this one piece of property in our decision?
The parcel before you.
The parcel before us, okay.
Which we have to close on by the end of the year.
Good. Briefly, it's been mentioned about, submitting conceptual plans with zoning. And it was brought up earlier. I would just like everybody to know that that's a double-edged sword, because you can have a conceptual plan brought in with your zoning request that is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and everybody says, yay, 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 that's what we want, and it's conceptual. They get the zoning, they go change it. So, just keep that in mind. I mean, it's been brought up a couple of times this evening. It's tough to work off of conceptual, because I'll tell you, if some of the conceptual plans were built that I've seen over my years, you'd have a Ruth Chris restaurant out on 434. So, just saying. And that RP, that's gotten mentioned a couple of times on Lake Jessup. That's a child psychology office, is what that is. That's why that's RP. So, anyway, Ms. Dan?
Yes, very briefly, I think that tonight you've heard a lot of concerns, and there are a lot of concerns on this from some of the homeowners in the area, which is good enough reason to table the decision. And I do understand, with all due respect, the developer has some concerns contractually and so forth, but really, I think the citizens of Oviedo come first. Just the last point I'd like to make is, again, we have a staff report, and there's information in there, and it's conclusory. It simply says it meets these standards. There is no testimony from staff. There's nothing in there to back it up. There has to be competent, substantial evidence. Without the ability or staff to put that out there, and without myself having the ability to question how that was arrived at, I just think there's some issues with that, and it calls into question whether it is competent, substantial evidence at all. So that's, I think, another good reason to table the decision and allow the HOA to work with the developer. And again, this is a public process. Planning, this isn't a planning decision, but this is a zoning decision, and the public needs to be involved with it. And they haven't had their say. They haven't had that dialogue with the developer. And that's all we're asking for tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Groot, Mr. Cobb, do you have anything to add?
The only thing I'd add is that there's abundant case law that says that the staff report is competent, substantial evidence to support a decision of a local government body.
All right, thank you, Mr. Groot. Also, I'd like to inform everybody, some of you may or may not be aware of this, that this developer was already delayed once by a staff error on our part. So that's why we're here tonight. So there was an advertisement that was advertised wrong. This would have been heard a month ago. So, well, we could shrug our shoulders, but it is a fact. So this has been out there. With that being said, go on to council discussion. Hang on just a second, guys. Let me get all the way back up to the front. Bear with me while I catch up. All righty. Had our public hearing. What is the pleasure of council? So we can get a discussion going. Need a motion, guys. I can't make them.
Mr. Mayor?
I'm going to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 1644.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Councilman Henkin, you have the floor.
You know, folks, I will tell you what, after sitting here for 11 years, I always like to tell this story, and I will tell it again because I think it's quite important. You've heard me ask the attorney on the record if this was time sensitive, and as Mr. Mayor pointed out, they were here, they were delayed on our era, but you know, that's not going to make you feel good. Our job, at least mine, has always been to sit here, is to send you all out of here winners and us winners. This is our city, we're all family. This is a little bit, I guess, unnerving when you see what's out on the internet and what's been on Facebook and all these things. That's why I choose not to be on Facebook, because a lot of it isn't right. We don't know that this is going to be the development. I suspect it probably will. I can just tell you from my point, to me, zoning doesn't scare me. This office commercial actually, in my opinion, will give us more options that maybe we wouldn't have under the other zoning. But I will just tell you from my perspective, and I say this all the time, I am one vote of 5, and I will do everything I can to make sure that nobody encroaches on our neighborhoods and, you know, makes our neighborhoods unsafe. And I had this own issue out where I live on 419. If you've all ever driven out by Sanctuary in Live Oak, you see that convenience center out there. Well, 11 years ago, when I decided to run for this office, the developer wanted to put a 20-bay gas station out there. And to me, I'm thinking we have 2 schools, daycare, all these things planned. And I was not about, just as you were, I was not, as a citizen, going to let this developer ruin those neighborhoods. So, you know, I'm saying, what can I do by myself? And make a long story short, we now have this retail center out there, which I will tell you, living 2 blocks from it, I don't hear a peep. The only good thing I hear, well, it's actually, you can smell, is the pizza when they're making pizza at Back Street, which is always good. But I will say this, you know, should this pass tonight and this zoning, I don't want you all to leave here and say, oh my God, they're going to ruin our neighborhood. There are so many, you know, more hearings, for lack of a better word, that would have to come here. And I can assure you, now I have 2 new members up here who I know have been invested in this community a long time. I know they're not going to let anything happen. These 2 guys, we have been through this before, and we have done everything I can. I heard, you know, some concerns about Clon Street and all these other things, and you can't speak to them because we don't know what the final plan is. But I will tell you, from my perspective, I heard you all loud and clear. This is what makes Oviedo great. It's very rare that we have all of you in this neighborhood. But I think, you know, I want you to go out of here and don't think that anything was lost. I think tomorrow you're probably going to hear from Miss Rebecca. Is going to call you all. And I will, you know, from my perspective, I'm going to promise you, they're going to get vetted very heavily, and every concern that you guys brought to us is going to be addressed. You know, we don't want to, we all have families here too. And, you know, I will tell you, when we work together, as we have done with other developments through the years, they always came out good. Now, I do just want to close with this. I agree with you. Our traffic is very heavy in Oviedo. Half of it we know is not ours. We know it's other counties cutting through because we're at the crossroads of state roads, so we know that's the issue. And, you know, sometimes I will hear, you know, we're not doing enough to fix the traffic. Well, I'll just remind everybody, 426 and 419 is going to start on the first phase from Smith Street up to Franklin Street. That will get widened. Then we'll start with Phase 2. That will come from Oviedo High School down to Oviedo Boulevard. Eventually, it will go from Oviedo Boulevard to Lockwood. We will then have 2 4-lane east-west passages through the city. That will stop it. Now, another good thing that I will point out is, you know, Orange County commissioners, thank God we had somebody elected there that was listening to the people and put a little pressure on them. They voted no on 2,000 homes that were going to be right in our back door. So I look at it this way. When we finished 426 and 419, without those homes coming here, we're just going to have what we normally have. Now, everybody coming from where I live out on 419, instead of making that turn on Lockwood and coming down Mitchell Hammock, they're going to keep going straight. And that's going to take so much traffic off of Mitchell Hammock. And eventually, it's written down here somewhere in some document, but Mitchell Hammock will need a 3rd lane at some point. The problem that we have is there's easement restrictions and things. But I just want to tell you from my perspective, You know, sometimes I lay in bed at night and I get these emails, and after reading them, and I worry about our city. But one thing I know, I have a great staff. I have 5 excellent council members. I had 2 that left us this evening. It's kind of strange having, although I know these folks very well, it's kind of weird looking down there, but we've always took what you said, you know, to heart, and I can promise you, when all these things come to us, when we finally get the plan, you're all going to be involved. And when it finally comes to make a decision, a lot of the concerns that I heard you, voice tonight, I think are going to be addressed. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I hear you loud and clear, and we will do everything we can to make it right. I will agree, somebody said, one of the residents, that we need to redevelop that corner. I've been saying that since the day I got elected. Boy, is that ugly. It seems like we got these rusted cars on the corner that are, they're there, they're not there. We have businesses that have been closed forever. So I think whatever comes, hopefully will be better. But, rest assured, your kids, your families, Clon Street, everything, we're going to take it all into consideration. I think in the end, at least for me, I think you're going to be happy when it's all done. And we're going to work on the traffic and all the things you email about us. We have a great city. And somebody asked me with all this election stuff, what's your goal being there so long? My goal is to get us to number 1. We keep getting in the number 10. Got a hospital coming, all these nice things. But your neighborhood's very important. Go home winners tonight. You guys will be the winners in the end, and we'll make sure of it. At least that's as best I can comfort you tonight. I'm not going to let nothing happen to you. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it off to the rest of my colleagues.
Thank you. Councilman Britton, you had the second.
I did. We've gone through this before. This is the toughest part about being up here, because we've got to weigh the rights of an applicant, property owner, and then the needs and wants of the citizens. I'll start off asking Brian or Mr. Root. I see attachment 2 here does have a pseudo site plan that shows the parcel with 2 retention ponds and on the what looks like to be the east side a parking lot. Are we allowed to consider that rendering in our decision?
You can consider it because it's evidence, but it's not anything that's binding upon the property owner.
Okay.
That which is binding upon the property owner will be the zoning district to which you assign the property.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at a pretty good plan here that basically does redevelop the corner that we're all concerned about. Without that area back there to support it, I don't think the plan will go through. I have to agree with Mr. Hankin. We're not going to get up here and allow someone to destroy a neighborhood that's next to this development. We're going to hold them to the fire. I'll discuss my concerns, and this has come up off and on throughout my tenure up here on why we don't address these things before the applicant gets to us instead of after the applicant gets to us. And maybe now is a good time to go ahead and I'll announce that initiative later on. But I've watched that World of Wheels and that Dunkin' Donuts we moved here in 1990, so we're going on 30 years. And it's high time we fix that. I'm not going to say traffic's not an issue, because traffic is an issue. I drive it every stinking day, and it's going west while I'm going east, and it's a lot of traffic coming from the east and south of us. It has nothing to do with you all in the audience that live here. It has to do with everyone going through here, and we've got to do something about that. And it's high time we started working. Phil mentioned we need to start working on a regional basis. It's high time we started doing that. But I don't think this is going to stop progress. I think this is a good overall development for us. We're going to sit up here and hold Mr. Applicant to the fire, and if he doesn't come and see you all, then he's going to rue the day, because it's not going to go through. I'm not saying we're going to vote for it because there's 4 other people up here, but I just give you my promise that I'm not going to let this impact your neighborhoods. So that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. We'll go down to all the way to the right. Councilwoman?
For the last few days since the agenda went online, I have been telling everybody, go to page 186 of the 263-page packet. That is right about where staff's report began. And as Mr. Groot pointed out, we do have to take that as actual evidence. I don't love change any more than anybody else, but I heard a lot of mention of trees and light and things like that. Our code is going to require this eventually to have some light on it, and no matter what the zoning is, the trees, there's a buffer code. The trees will have to go back, but some trees will have to go down no matter what it is, if it's RP, if it's office commercial. So I just encourage everybody to get your information straight from the source. And if you haven't already read page 186 on, it is a worthy read. And one of the things I just want to point out officially is it's on page 10 of it. I'll just read it straight into the record, even though it's already there. This is on page 10 of the staff report, and under other comments it says, adoption of a zoning map amendment does not reserve or guarantee capacity in water, sewer, transportation, drainage, recreation, or solid waste facilities, nor does it guarantee maximum density or intensity in a land use designation can be achieved. So just because they have asked for office commercial and potentially may get that, it doesn't mean we have to approve every use within that district. Am I understanding that correctly, Mr. Groot?
That's correct.
Okay, so we could, even though we can't do contract zoning, which I think is a lovely idea, but I understand legally why we can't. We could all pinky promise, or something to that effect, that we will not, or we just won't allow it to happen, as Mr. Hinkin has suggested.
Anything else?
So?
Councilman, you're up.
This corner has been an eyesore for me since I've moved here, and we've got a wonderful opportunity here with this corner. There's been a lot of people that have talked about trying to redevelop this, and we've actually got an opportunity to do something with it. Brought before us today is just the rezoning of this parcel, but the loss of any kind of agreement on this parcel could mean a loss of this entire corner. So, there's a lot more to this discussion, and it'll go further. We will hold the developer's feet to the fire to make sure that we have as minimal impact on the residents as possible. Like Councilwoman Sladek had stated, there will be trees that will have to come down. But there will be buffers there. This development or this property is, the zoning of this isn't the end. The zoning of it was delayed, like the mayor had stated, in the LPA because of an error of staff. This has been going on for months now. But there will be more discussion when the site plans actually do come out. So please bear with us, and this will be a project that we can work together and we can be proud of, and I guarantee you that you will be happy with this, and we will meet all of your meet all of your needs as you have stated before.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you.
can I just add one more
Sure,
quick thing,
Deputy
if you don't
Mayor,
mind?
go right
You know, I just wanted to just address one other thing, too. I'm not sure if it was one of the attorneys talked about, this could be, if we gave this zoning, this could be, an auto parts store or a gas station or something bad like that. No, it can't, because that, and I think the applicant's attorney pointed out, there are well fields there with drinking water, and the usage has to be very, not intense at all. So what he said is not correct, and we're not going to let somebody put a gas station near a well field. So, if this is the project that that's approved, it's not that intense. It doesn't have bad use. Can you imagine living next to 2,800 homes and having 20 gas station bays being right next to you? That was not happening on my watch, and it will not happen here either. So whatever happens here, keep that in mind too. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay.
And one other thing, Mr. Mayor, because I think it's the first time I've seen this in 11 years, this cross-examining of my staff on the record, doesn't happen, okay? And Mr. Groot is so right on that. That staff report is the competent staff, review that's there. We don't cross-examine our staff in public. So I just, you're probably wondering why that happened. That's never happened while I was here. That report is in the record, and that's what our staff found. And I might add that the 3 people that reviewed that report have so much experience, so many years, and they are competent. So, you don't have to worry about that.
Thank you. Anybody else?
You're up.
Just want to make sure. Let's examine a few things here. Mr. Cobb, I'll direct the question to you. It's been said, it's been mentioned. I think I know the answer. I think everybody else needs to know the answer. Can you explain the wellfield protection zones and the mitigations of uses that creates with that wellfield being there to the property?
Basically, the wellfield protection establishes different zones around the wellfield itself, around the well. There are 2 types of zones that go around the well. Each one has its own particular levels of protection. There's one part of it you might say is a no-touch zone. There would be no development. And then as you move away from the wellfield, obviously, the further away you get from it, then there are limited uses that will be allowed. But everything that's within the wellfield protection deals with just that, protecting the well. And that is the whole purpose, protecting the city's potable water supply. It's not only just a land development here, it's also a comprehensive plan policy regarding wellfield protection. We have it in our potable water element of the comprehensive plan that as far as the protection of the well fields. So, but there are limitations that go with it. There's a 75-foot primary zone of protection. That's part of that. It says no touch. 75-foot primary zone of protection. And that's the part I was talking about, no touch. There is a 100-feet secondary zone, and then there's a 500-foot zone. And the 100-foot zone has more requirements than the 500-foot, obviously. But and this property will be subject to that. The staff has outlined the different regulations within your staff report. Mayor, I can go over. Do you want me to go over them in detail, or?
Why don't Reader's Digest? Please don't Bryanize it at this late hour.
Well, that was the reason that I was asking.
That's an actual verb, by the way.
Yeah, like I said, the primary protection zone. There's nothing allowed there. The possibility of if there's a residence that's already there, but the secondary zone, the 100-foot zone, it's very limited use that can be placed there. We actually get into like the storage of gasoline and things like that. But the 500-foot zone, it tries to look at things that would be a detriment to the well itself.
Well, and thank you, Brian. The reason why I brought that up is that I'm looking at a conceptual site plan, because that's all this thing is that's floating around out there. And, the well field is dead smack in the center of 2 proposed ponds, and with the 100-foot, it basically just eats up the 140-foot in depth. It's just cutting the property right in half. I don't know what else they'd be able to do with the property. If it wasn't being used for ponds or a passive use. It's splitting it right in half. Parking on the conceptual plan, and again, these things can change. I don't even know how this got out there or why it's out there, but it's out there. The parking is to the, I guess that would be the east of the Whispering Woods entrance, and then it's lined up with the entrance to Boston Hill Park, the back entrance, because then we run into another well field.
Yes, sir.
So, I think there's plenty of protections there, as others have stated. Transportation, everyone has pointed that out. I mean, we don't disagree, guys, but any of you who have come to the State of the Cities, you know, we've given the history about why we are where we are. You know, we're here because of different decisions made back in the 70s and 80s, when it was a rural town and nobody believed DOT when they were telling them the explosive growth that Oviedo was going to have. I mean, you know, we did all move here and it was rural. I've been here 21 years. But I think what the failure is that that's unfortunately not what it was eventually destined to become. And those even the families who have been here since the 30s and the 20s, and when you speak with them, some of them are very proud of the growth that it's occurred because they didn't have anything. I mean, up until 1980-something, Publix was Winter Park. So, you know, we get it, but we also have to understand what the plan is. We have to understand that if constraints weren't put on our roadways, 434 and 426 would be widened already. Does anybody ever wonder why everything's widened to us and not through us? The reason for that are constraints. So the councils back in the 70s and 80s were concerned about the state building bypasses, and there's designs for these bypasses around Oviedo. Just like a lot of folks will say to us up on council, oh, we need to be a nice little quaint place like Winter Garden. We need to be a nice little quaint place like Sanford. You know the difference, guys? Those communities allowed the states to build the bypasses around their old little historic downtowns, which fell into disrepair and then came back. Oviedo didn't. What Oviedo did is they decided that the business district was old historic downtown. They wanted the traffic to come through there, and God bless them. I mean, if I was sitting out here in this little rural community and I owned the Meat World or whatever, all the other things that used to be down there, the hardware store, and somebody came in and said, hey, we're going to send all the traffic away from your business, I would have been concerned as well. But once those constraints went on our roadways, the state just stopped looking. They said, okay, that's fine. You know, basically what Oviedo did is they threw up the flag and they say, hey, just leave us alone. We're good. Life's fine. We like our little country roads. But then everything grew up around us. And then back in 2000, the city lifted the constraints. So now what we're playing is catch-up. And we're playing catch-up on traffic because of the infill projects that these are now they are known as. I mean, I sit on MetroPlan. I've been doing nothing but begging for millions of dollars for 10, 15 years. We're there now. The money is finally there. The projects are finally starting. We had congressmen, we had state senators, we had representatives, everybody pulling to get that money allocated for us. We even took our tax dollars, our sales tax dollars, and put them towards the PD&E study for 419 and 426 to accelerate it. That's how important it is. We understand it. I drive around in it all day. I mean, during the afternoon, honestly, it's not too bad. But come 4 o'clock, I get it. I mean, it's gridlock. Not 4, I would say probably closer to 5. But, you know, that hour, you don't want to be anywhere on Mitchell Hammock Road. I get it. I live off of Chapman. It's the only way I got to go anywhere is Mitchell Hammock. So I'm there with you 1,000%. There are improvements coming. Automatic traffic light control system is going to be turned on shortly. It's out there gathering. Anybody ever wonder what all the cameras were? A lot of folks thought they were red light cameras, red light cameras. They're not. It's actually a system that's going to finally synchronize all these traffic lights together. Because right now they're not. Right now they're just on timing. What this system's going to do is tie them all together up and down the Mitchell Hammock corridor. So hopefully that'll help. Downtown, historic downtown, as you saw, a lot of the buildings have been taken down. They're moving utilities right now. They're moving power poles right now. They're getting ready to start construction. End of the year is what they've told us. We had a hearing, or a public forum, I should call it. It wasn't really a hearing, from DOT on a presentation here in the council chambers about 6 weeks ago on it, maybe 8 weeks ago. Repair shops, I mean, I keep hearing that. You can't have an auto repair shop in office commercial without coming back to us for a special exception. And those of you who have lived in Whispering Woods for many years may remember, because I sat here, you were all here once before, about Discount Tire it was, at that point in time, wanted to buy the 2 lots to their north and expand Discount Tire and add, 10 bays or something, if I remember, and asphalt and this, that, and the other thing, and they were running up the road a little bit too close. An auto repair shop that close to residential, I agree 1,000%. All that noise, the ratcheting, I mean, you probably hear it where it is now, I would imagine. I mean, I wouldn't know with the air guns. So, certain things have to be granted special exceptions that the council is under, at that point, no obligation to do. And as far as protecting everybody, I mean, that's our main number one goal. But I want to get to the root of the issue here. And the root of the issue is timing and input. And Becky, if you can come on up here for a second. Becky, you, your applicant, your clients have sat here with us and heard all these concerns. And, quite frankly, they're valid concerns, and I share every one of them with them. They want time to sit with you and have a discussion before an application submission. Are you and your client willing to state on the record this evening that there'll be no submission to our staff other than sufficiency, because sufficiency review could take 30 to 45 days anyway, until you sit down and meet with these folks?
We are committed to meet with them before sufficiency. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, sit down, have a conversation with them, address their concerns, because, and Councilman, Deputy Mayor, pardon me, mentioned it. I mean, let's face it, you're all going to be back in here. I mean, there isn't any way you're going to build this without needing deviations.
I thought you said they're going to all be back. Yes,
no,
we will be back here.
You're going to be back in here.
Hopefully, there will be some people that are satisfied.
Well, and that's the point I'm going to make. I mean, as Councilwoman pointed out and read into the record, I mean, just because we give you a zoning doesn't mean we gave you approval.
We understand that.
But, I don't want to start, well, let me rephrase. It would not be in your best interest for us to start getting emails from these residents that you're not meeting with them, that you're not having genuine meetings with them, that you're not addressing their concerns. That wouldn't go very well for them to come back in here when you come in for your deviations, and you will be here for them, to have them stand up here and say that. You'd want them standing up here saying they've been the greatest thing since sliced bread to work with and addressed each and every one of our concerns, and, oh, my God, we are so happy now.
That is absolutely our goal.
All righty, so you're committed to it. No submission except for sufficiency review, because that doesn't mean much of anything. Staff's going to send you back 40 pages of comments on it anyway, so.
You've tried to get something approved in Oviedo, then.
They're thorough, which is what we were saying. So. All righty, so you are committed. Mr. Cobb, Mr. Groot, does that commit them to anything? Do I need to get something else from them? Well, tell me how we make this work, Mr. Groot. Don't tell me why it doesn't work. Tell me how we make it work.
Well, you will know if I haven't fulfilled my obligation when I come back with our site plan.
The way it works is when a plan is submitted, if there's deviations requested, that's when it will work.
Yeah, okay. Well, obviously there's going to be deviations on this thing. There's just in the zoning district that you have out there on the corner, the zero lot line isn't even allowed. You'll be back at least for that. We know we're going to see you again.
You will see us.
All right, so holidays are here. By the end of January, we will give them, which will give them time. You'll have a meeting with them. We can arrange it in a public place if you need one, either City Hall, Oviedo on the Park. We can find some place for you to hold it, and you'll sit with them and listen to their concerns and more importantly, address their concerns.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Hang on one second.
can I ask one more question?
Sure.
On this particular piece of property, have any trees or the ground, the dirt, nothing's been touched on it yet, correct?
We do not own the property. We have not touched it. If anyone has been out there, they were doing our environmental assessment and soils borings.
Okay. All right.
If I could follow up on a question, what is all the orange tape around the trees? Are those trees that are big enough to be considered for impact purposes that would have to be replanted?
Probably
Have any tree
a
survey?
tree survey had to be done.
Okay. So that's just trees that are going to show up on the map? And then,
That we had to count, yes.
okay.
So a certain type and certain caliber have to be marked on our tree survey.
Okay, so those aren't marked for removal or anything, they're just marked for the tree survey?
They right now are marked for the tree survey. Trees will be removed in this process.
We understand that.
Okay.
Right, but they'll also be replaced at
They will.
just about a ridiculous rate.
They will.
Would it be fair to say we have one of the tougher tree codes that you work with?
It is absolutely.
Absolutely the worst, right? From a developer standpoint, but we like it, so. Any other questions? No? Thank you. Mr. Cobb, anything else for us?
No, Mayor.
Mr. Groot?
No, sir.
Nope. Applicant is good. Mr. Hand, anything? One last shot I'll give you. You good? That's what I like to hear. Anything from council? Good of the order? Motion on the table is to adopt. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll get on to reports.
Folks, have a Merry Christmas.
That's all you need? The title.
All righty. Moving along, we are just up to reports, so Mr. Cobb, have at it.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, December is always a busy time of year for us. There are a number of events that are going to be undertaken between now and Christmas, and just wanted to say, watch your calendars and invite you to attend all. I'm not going to go through them all. That'll ask you. That the events over the weekend were wonderful, and if there are any indication of what's coming with the rest of the month, it's going to be a great month.
Awesome. Thank you. Mr. Groot.
The only comment I have, Mr. Mayor, is that the court reporter who was here for three hours or so, aside from getting people's names spelled correctly, the only two people she had problems understanding were both graduates of the University of Tennessee.
Yes.
Says the FSU Knoll.
1999.
I can't say that I disagree with that assessment, but we'll leave it at that. Let's see. Councilmember Britton, you're up.
All right, I got 3 items, one announcement and 2 seed planting type things. Thursday, League of Cities is having their last set of meetings for the upcoming legislative session, and I'll be attending the Transportation and Intergovernment Relations Policy Committee out at Lake Buena Vista somewhere. I think it's at the Embassy Suites. So for you newbies, if you're interested in League of Cities, get with me or get with Brian, and he can give you an overview of what they do. They represent all the cities in the state and are good advocates for us and address a lot of things that we don't have the capability to address at the legislative level. So I've been involved with the Transportation Committee for, I don't know, as long as I can remember, 5 or 6 years now. So, number 2 is I was asked to at least bring up, Brian, and maybe you and Drew can help me with this, what is the status of the old post office and whether it's in a condition that might be able to very cheaply be utilized for maybe a senior center of some sorts for some low impact activities for seniors. And I'm not sure you got a status now, but the question was, are we just going to let the roof leak, or are we going to maybe try to maintain it at least in a mothball condition to where we can go in there and do something with it if the need comes. Along those lines, Drew, I know we haven't had a Parks and Rec advisory committee, but I think it's time to either sunset some of the members, transition them out, or reinvigorate it, and maybe with an emphasis on senior activities, because there seems to be a lot of interest in that now. We've got the programs covered. The kids are covered. The adults, young adults with their soccer and flag football are covered. But there seems to be a need for our seniors to have a place to go and have activities and enjoy themselves and enjoy their twilight years. So we're starting a new era, so if we can maybe kick that off, Drew, I'd appreciate it, and maybe get some input from some of the old members of the committee. And finally, I said I was going to talk about this tonight. This would have been a good night to have this process in place. The mayor likes to laugh at me because I go to these meetings called CALNO, which is the Council of Local Governments.
I don't laugh at you. I just find it funny that the mayor of Winter Springs quit.
He did. And it's his loss. But a few years ago, and I've brought this back several times since, we had a presentation from Longwood on what they call a pre-development authority, where in this situation, if someone wanted to come in with a new project, they were required to go to the surrounding neighborhoods and show the neighborhoods what their plans were and get their inputs and address their issues before they even came to us, so that we don't have these types of meetings. Longwood does it very effectively, and maybe it's time we took a look at it again. There wasn't a consensus in the past. With these infill projects, maybe it's time to look at it so that we don't have a crowd of people here that are uninformed because they haven't been given proper notice or haven't been given the information.
So just, that's the seed I want to plant. So,
You have copies of that? Or do you have staff?
I think I provided them a couple of years ago, but I can get a hold of, or Terry, you can get a hold of, Teresa, you can get a hold of Longwood and get their copy of it.
Maybe just copy it out there, everybody. Let's see if there's any interest. We'll bring it up.
Okay. That's it. Welcome aboard, you two. Good to have you here.
And I saw all sorts of nodding when the councilman brought it up, but was there consensus to have staff look at doing something with the post office? Yes, no, indifferent?
Yes.
Before we...
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, just,
Wasted space as it is.
I was looking, I saw nodding, I just want to make sure. Councilman Henkin has volunteered to help lift up the asbestos floors, and he wants to do them mask-free, so get him in there. They're the vinyl tile. You grew up in a house that the oil burner was in the center of the house with an asbestos wrap around it, because I grew up in the same house.
And I pulled it all off after 40 minutes without a mask, so.
Connie grew up in one of those houses, too. I mean...
It's done at his grave.
Yeah.
All righty. Just a few things. Real quick. The tree lighting, hometown tree lighting was the other night. You guys came out. It's always a great event. That was a lot of fun. Great day in the country. Actually did pretty well at the park. I was probably the most worried about it, and actually pulled it off. A lot of tweaks probably needed, and I'm sure a lot is coming out of the post meetings, but looked like it held up pretty well. The chamber may be approaching us about barbecue blowout after they saw the success of Great Day, so we'll see what they may or may not want to do. The other night also, after the hometown tree lighting, was UPAC, University Performing Arts Center, put on the Nutcracker over at Oviedo on the Park at the amphitheater, and it was awesome. Oh my gosh, it was, I guess I'm an alum of UPAC, so it was fun to see everybody again, but it was great to see the performance, and not only that, how packed the lawn was. It was packed with parents and just people. A lot of them weren't even parents. A few initiatives. We're all going to throw them out because we got new folks, new blood. But two things I'd like everybody to put on their radar. Three things actually. First one, Brian, the east-west corridor studies that we have. We obviously 419, 426 is being done, but we have 2 or 3 of them, I think, don't we? East-west corridor studies with Blanton, and then we have that other one do the update to it.
I think there's 2.
All right. Can we get refreshers on all of those for everybody? And perhaps after everybody reads them, we might need to update them again. And I know a lot of things go into play with the east-west study because the north-south corridor study, that's yet to be done, the PD&E in 2020 or whenever the state has it planned. But it may or may not be bad to get a refresher for us all on those and see what may or may not need to be done. Things have changed, and I don't disagree with anybody that Mitchell Hammock is oversaturated right now, and 419, 426 should be the cure-all. But let's make sure that we build 419, 426 correctly to be the cure-all, and not narrow it down or slow it down to a point that it doesn't, but balance it so it relieves Mitchell Hammock and it achieves the goals and the vision. Citizens Academy. I know, Chief, you and I have talked about this. Sanford has an awesome syllabus, because that's another thing, getting right into what Councilman Britton said. If we maybe took the Sanford program and just verbatim copied it, other than we don't have to talk about an airport and a couple other things. You and I talked to the HOA Presidents Association. They're willing to, not that, the group has fallen apart, but they would be willing to get some of the presidents back together to help us with that initiative and get it out to their residents and, help, maybe it'll avoid some of this when you let people volunteer to come to an academy and figure out how it all works. And the syllabus, I know, I saw, I think I saw one left in your mailbox.
Yeah, Sanford gave that presentation.
Yeah. Airport would be cool. And then the last thing I'm going to bring up, and the two to my left are going to laugh at this, but, visioning. Yeah.
You're right.
No, guys. There's going to be a lot of things brought up by the new members. There's a lot of things that have changed, a lot of things that we all know about that they don't know about in the community. And we've got all these plans. We've got to pull them back together. We've got to get a consultant who's going to go out into the community, talk to the community, similar to what we did with Oviedo on the Park. I mean, we did all the RFPs and RFQs. I mean, they're out there. And we really, well, you know how Mr. Cobb feels about it. He, I think, would wholeheartedly agree with me. But
we can talk about it later, but we did talk about a first step, which was updating all of those plans as a first step.
Yeah, but we need the visioning consultant to put all those plans together to...
Do we really need a consultant? Can't we do that? It's already been done. And I can use the word placemaking every other sentence, too, just as good as the consultants can.
Well, the problem, I think, Councilwoman, that you'll figure out is that the staff doesn't have the time. So, it's not something that we can do. This is a grown-up city now, and I would encourage you, why don't we get them copies of the top 3 consultants that we had chosen so they could see what the scope was, Brian? I know they weren't chosen, but they've got to be around here somewhere. Just let's get an idea first. Let's take a look at it, and then we'll discuss it. But it's much more involved than what staff is going to be able to handle, unless we want to hire a new staff person to do that.
Why not give them the transportation master plan and the Parks and Recs master plan?
Yeah, I'd like all that stuff, please. Is it on, what's that little share spot? SharePoint? Is that all on SharePoint?
Should be.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. The RFP things are out there, too. Well, they were, because that's where we got them all from. And then we had books. Yeah, remember, Schenck didn't want books, Councilman Schenck.
That's great.
So they stuck it out on SharePoint, and the rest of us said, no, we wanted books.
So you think there's something wrong with the visioning documents as they are?
No. What I think that the visioning documents that we have are, as Councilman Britton said, dated and need just to be brought back into focus. Okay. Because the last goals and the last visions we have in goals are the ones sitting up on the wall over there. I mean, and that was done a long while ago. And now we've sat as the past 5 of us once or twice and did goal setting, but basic updates. And then we had the last one that, how shall I mildly put it, crashed and burned.
But the logo was good.
Yeah, it was. Oh, yeah, we have all those logos, too. I mean, we never did anything with it. Oh, we got a whole ton of them. Let's just get everybody up to speed. I'm not asking that we do this tomorrow. Let's do visioning. Let's get it done. Get the big things up on the wall again. And that way staff has a path to follow. But anyway, that's all I got. Pollock, you're up, buddy.
All right.
Go for it, Bob.
So, I'm going to start with some things that went on this past week as a councilman-elect.
Look at him. He's all typewritten. How cute. Bob, let me show you how it's done after 17 years. It's scribbled on your agenda as you're here.
Mine's only 1 page.
Mine's only 1.
Oh, you're typewritten? Oh, how... Can we get a picture of this later?
Okay, so the meet and greet on Thursday went...
There's no doubt, though. Yours is typewritten, but Aaron probably did it, and I know you did yours probably.
Okay, I'm getting a picture of this right now. There we go. How cute. Typewritten reports.
So anyways, the meet and greet went really well on Thursday. Enjoyed it. Other than my daughter messing up her wrist and having to go to urgent care. But other than that, everything else went well. The Lawton House tree lighting was great. I went to the Orlando Philharmonic Jazz Orchestra. That was really nice. Except it might maybe a little bit later in the evening because it was quite hot out there with the sun beating down on us.
Make it a free event next year. Is it that much cost to bring them in? We'll talk later. Okay. Never mind, I'm sorry about that.
And then the Boys Town tree lighting was great. That organization is.
Oh, did I interrupt you on that?
Yes.
It was very interesting. They were in the middle of their speeches, and all of a sudden the fire truck siren sounds off. They're only about halfway through the program, and here comes the fire truck, and they all ran down there. And I had to make the comment to Rick Brown that it's the first time I've ever known the Seminole County Fire Department to be early for anything. And when they showed up, it was the Oviedo Fire Department. I said, well, that explains why they're early. Go ahead, Bob.
So anyway, I mean that I went there last year for the first time for the tree lighting, and it's a tremendous organization that I think we could definitely keep on our radar and help out. Let's see, coming up, I'm going to be at the Focus graduation for Parton Elementary coming up. My daughter's going to be actually in it, so it'll be a great opportunity.
That's going to be interesting. Are you going to get up on the stage with us, or are you going to sit in the audience as a dad?
I don't know. No, it'd be a great opportunity to embarrass her.
Or you could be like Councilman Schenck for his daughter's graduation. He decided to go to China, but that's a whole other story. He did.
And I can't wait for all the other activities on the coming up this coming week, and the parade at Snow Mountain on Saturday. All right, so now on to some of the issues. I can't wait for the completion of the land development code to come to us and really get a chance to go through all that. It's been a long time coming. I think that there's a lot of businesses here that just kind of want to really know the rules, so that because speaking to businesses and speaking to developers, they never quite know what to expect.
Forward to the land development code. He's sitting in
Shank Jr.
Yes, that's nice. You're in the right seat.
That's good.
Something osmosis must have come out of that seat.
And also, this was when I was on the PZA or LPA. We went through and discussed all the different roles. I think that there may be some approvals that maybe we can look at to pass back down to the LPA, because it's quite a process to go from staff to the LPA to the city council. I mean, you're talking months out by the time it all gets done, and some of them seem to be a little bit more.
I think we took away things from LPA.
You did.
To eliminate that step to speed it up.
But you eliminated them in the process. If you eliminate the city council in the process and just give LPA the authority for some of these things.
That's a discussion.
Yes. Yeah, that I want to see you say that 2 or 3 years from now.
Okay. And then also,
you know what? I'm sorry. How many phone calls did you get on LPA for a decision?
All right. And the last item I had is migrating some of, as Oviedo on the park matures, migrating some of the ordinances to the rest of the city, as kind of use that as a test ground for some of these ordinances and migrate it out too, because that's another thing that I heard on the campaign trail was, a lot of discussion about, Oviedo on the park gets everything, and everybody else has, doesn't. And I know that it's got its own special zoning district, but there are some things that I think that could expand outward. Not just, things for, but, also,
was there any, for instance, they gave you? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, I don't have one in particular right now, but that's just a thought. We were talking about the traffic solutions. As a city becomes a little bit more dense, I think that there's a great opportunity for maybe trying to, on special events and stuff, so public transportation, not just from a parking spot, but maybe actually bring it to some communities that are close by, to where we don't have to worry about as much parking. We can actually have some transportation going to and from Oviedo in the park, almost as a hub.
Trolley.
No trolleys. No trolleys. Let's see, just make sure that we can, and one of the items is, the historic downtown area. I'd really like to see that, ready, as soon as FDIT gets finished, that we could start really, kind of, sinking our teeth.
Boy, it sounds like you want to do visioning.
And
placemaking.
All right, I like that better. You like that better? Placemaking's fine.
They go together.
I don't care what you call it.
The senior center, I think we were talking to the same person, obviously, having a senior center, but also have maybe some sort of transportation with it, because a lot of the seniors can't get around as much either, to work on that. And another issue that was brought up on the campaign trail was, we do have like the Optimist Club, but something like a special needs center as well, to work on some, to provide for special needs, more on the adult side, or the older special needs kids that need some places to go and maybe even live in places, just to kind of keep that on our radar. And then let's see, I had something on visioning here. Oh, on the visioning side, I think that we should include the LPA if we have discussions and meetings on that kind of stuff as well.
Absolutely. They're cute.
And on item 13 on the consent agenda tonight, there was a approval for $8,000 on there, and it was because it was 5% of the original order. I think I think we should have like a dollar amount associated, as well as the 5%, like the greater.
We've been down that road.
Okay.
We can talk about that. Why don't you sit with Brian? Okay. He'll show you the.
All right. And then going back to item 12, just maybe some more discussion on expanding the retail margins. So, working on that. So that's all I had on mine.
Is that it?
That's it.
Good job, Bob. All righty, Megan, I'm sorry, we all took your time.
No, I promised a short report. It's going to... Oh, you're next. Oh, you're like...
I thought you were last. I wasn't even...
See,
I do apologize.
See, Mr. Miller, if any of you remember him, he said after it's 2 hours, nobody's effective. We haven't had a 4-hour meeting in a long time.
All right, let me correct myself. Deputy Mayor, you're up.
These two are going to go home
Sorry, I
terrorized
thought
tonight.
you were next and then him.
Yeah, you guys are going home terrorized. What did we sign up for? This is like, that was a good one. Just a couple things. I want to just recognize Councilman Schenk and Councilwoman Drago. They did not come tonight. I thought they might, but the three of us were here, so we could have approved those minutes. But I do want to, say that they, my view down here is a little different, although it's in very capable hands, but those two really have, made a significant contribution to the city over the years. They were up here 14 years between them, so they will be missed. I suspect...
It was odd.
Yeah, it was a little bit. But it's good. But it was a good...
Bob didn't kick me under the table once.
Yeah, well, he will. But they made a significant contribution, so I just want to recognize them, too, that, usually the old protocol was you'd be up here in your Tommy Bahama shirt and, you'd give your speech and you'd leave. And that didn't happen tonight. But those two, I suspect one of them will be active, and one of them is going to go on a lot of vacations. So, but we wish them both well. I want to say to my colleague, Councilman Britton, and to Councilwoman Sladak and Councilman Pollack, congratulations on your re-election and your election. He's done a great job. You guys, I know, will do a great job. So we had a good night tonight, so good for that. The only thing I would say with the visioning, we'll have some talks on that. Might not be a bad idea one day for us to have one night for 2 hours maybe just a little goal-setting, brainstorming. They have a lot of ideas. I'm still trying to get my damn cemetery, but whatever. Maybe just
All part of a vision.
maybe just a little of that, and we could talk about the visioning and other issues that might come up. So, I'd be in favor of something like that, all things to do. And one thing I want to mention, a couple years ago, due to the budget, we cut a lot of things, and, with our new incoming president and the way he feels about business and about cities and about growth, this would be something to discuss there. We may want to look into having our representative up in Washington, who we brought home millions of dollars from. We didn't do it during, the President Obama's time. Not much was getting done, but now that we have a different outlook, it might be something to consider to go, we need a third lane on Mitchell Hammock. It's a lot of money. We need money for things. Might not hurt to revisit that again, because we cut it out because of the budget, and they did, between, when the earmark days were there. I don't think they're going back to that, but it might not be a bad idea. A lot of other cities are asking. Maybe we should ask, and that'll be up to the four of us. But other than that, congratulations, you two. Welcome aboard, Keith. Glad you're back, and that's the end.
Baptism by fire tonight.
All right, well, you guys already know that I like historic districts and have been interested in one for many, many years. You should have gotten and perhaps, hopefully, perused a draft ordinance. So I guess what I would like, and Mr. Groot tells me this is possible, make a motion that we put this on the agenda and see if there is consensus to move forward with asking landowners about a voluntary versus a mandatory historic district in some corridors that have been identified by the city's own consultants as being historically significant.
Are you asking, is your motion to put it on as a discussion item or as a...
Well, we can't make motions during reports.
Not really a
but you can ask for a
I think we
discussion item.
can. Mr. Groot.
Our rules don't allow
What?
it, do they?
What was being requested was to place an item on the future agenda.
Yes.
By
So that could
consensus.
be a motion or a consensus.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Either one would be fabulous.
But I would just recommend, I know what you're saying, but maybe we need to have a discussion item or something where you can present the pros and cons or give us some information on it, and then we go forward with an ordinance.
Okay. Well, the draft ordinance and the pros and cons were emailed out maybe 10 days ago or something like that. So that's out there. We've got 6 weeks between now and the January 17th meeting. So I'd love for everybody to look over that, and that we could use that as a jumping off point. And
As a discussion item.
As a discussion item, sounds.
Can I make, and this is to help you out, you got to watch the timing of your agendas, because we're having this meeting, there'll be no more meeting. This is it.
So January's going to be crazy.
It could be. That happens sometimes. So sometimes you're better off, if you want something to get a little bit more attention and time, shoot for your first meeting in February, but discuss it with Mr. Cobb, and I don't, is there consensus for a discussion item?
That's fine. We're always.
Why don't you discuss with Mr. Cobb what the agendas look like, since we don't set the agendas, and pick the lighter one, so that way it could get the attention that you wanted, rather than, like Councilman Henkin just said, I mean, we have a busy agenda, you get to the end of your discussion item, and then, quite frankly, nobody wants to do it. Does happen.
But on that discussion item, I saw your email. I think Councilman Britton is right. The pros, the cons, what's it going to do for the average, citizen? I mean, I know you've been on this for a very long time through the years, but just, when you bring that, give us like a little bullet point sheet and stuff like that, so we got some stuff to go, if you can. That'd be good.
I can absolutely do that.
That'd be great.
And I can use the word placemaking in the process.
That's my new word. I wrote it down.
Yeah, I mean, that is the word that Wade Trin got ingrained in my brain about 12 years ago. Isn't that an annoying word?
That's right. That was
they're like,
Charlie
we need to
Seaman
placemate.
used to say that,
Yeah.
and Mike Roberto.
And I
Forgot
kept
about
thinking,
that.
the place they're trying to make is the one we're knocking down. We don't need a consultant to tell us this. We have an example. We just need to copy it after the roads are wide, which kind of goes back to, should we pay people to do that? A lot of stuff I'll just do in a report later on, but there are old green street signs that have come down, and I've seen them laying on the sides of the road, lying. I'll use my proper grammar. Is there a plan for dispensing, or you're disposing of those yet? I guess that's, I don't know where I should direct that to.
We actually have a street sign replacement program that is running in conjunction with our street paving program.
Well, can
Now-
people who want the signs get them? Because if they're just being thrown away, I think it would be a really neat idea to say, well, you can have this sign if you donate $10 to the charity of your choice. Maybe the city could have an initiative, because I don't know how many street signs there are, but if there's 1,000 street signs and we give them away for $10 a pop, well, we've got $10,000 that we could do something really good for our community with.
Where are they?
Well, I saw one right by Lawton, and it was Graham Avenue. Well, I know a kid named Graham. The parents would be happy to pay probably $20 for that one, not even 10. But it's just an interesting idea that may create a little extra work, but maybe it would be a neat thing. And fluoride in the water, how do we bring that up for consideration? I know a lot of people feel very strongly that fluoride should not be in Oviedo's drinking water. It currently is. I don't know a lot of people who feel strongly that it should be in the water. So maybe...
Okay, tomorrow, I want you to call Mr. Grisaukis, Joe Grisaukis from the Water Department. He is an authority on this. We've had some emails. Read it and then check it out first, because the pros and cons, we've seen them all, but Joe has done, he's got a whole file on this stuff. You may want to check it out.
Can we revisit it, though?
We can
Okay.
revisit anything, of course, but take a look at what he has.
But there's no consensus to revisit.
There's really no consensus. Okay, if there's no consensus and you guys love fluoride,
Yeah, I'm just saying,
I
go
brought
with
it up.
Consensus?
Just go.
We've been down this road.
When did this happen, just so I can give feedback to people who
Go
asked?
talk to Joe.
Okay.
There was a whole thing about this 6 years ago, and we've
Okay,
been up
because
and down
I
this
do
road.
remember the 6 years ago thing, but I was hoping that perhaps times had changed and things like that. Another thing that kind of came up with the Stonehill project, dispensaries. There's the whole marijuana thing going on now, and one of the permissible uses in this OC zoning is indeed, pharmacies. Does this count as would a dispensary for medical marijuana count as a pharmacy? I don't know. I don't know that our land development
He's
code.
telling you no.
No. Okay. Yeah.
We got that ordinance, don't we?
I think they're almost done writing it.
Okay. So this is in the works.
Well, also, through the Department of Health, the Department of Compassionate Use is mandated by the amendment to to promulgate rules and regulations for dispensaries. They have, I believe it's 6 months to do so. They are reaching out to different facets, law enforcement and other facets, to promulgate those rules, and that's forthcoming from the state.
All right. Cool. Thank you.
I thought we passed an ordinance a year or two ago on restrictions on locations of dispensaries.
Pill mills? I mean, there's different. Yeah. there's
management.
di-
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a moratorium ordinance that's making its way to you, which jurisdiction after jurisdiction right now are enacting moratorium ordinances to await what's going to happen in the state and to develop what local responses will be to that state action. So that's on LPA next week, right? The moratorium ordinance goes to LPA next week.
I think, if I remember, didn't Sheriff Esslinger ask us all to wait because they wanted to do one big countywide one?
Right, but what's happened now,
Right,
because
but
of
then
the
everything
amendment
changed.
passed, on the other side of it also, everybody's kind of waiting to see what happens on January 20th with the new
Trump administration
and the new Attorney General, especially when it comes to medical and the recreational use. So that's another thing on the horizon
One of the things
that could affect that.
The chief and I have, for years and years now, right, have not understood the whole marijuana issue because federal law prohibits it. So how, and the U.S. Constitution says federal law is supreme. So the obvious question is, what are we talking about then, since it's illegal federally? And some people believe the Trump administration will take off the restraints from the Attorney General and say, go back and enforce federal law again.
That's some other thought.
But to answer the original question, no, they're not pharmacies. Yes, they're different.
Because it's not a prescription. You can't prescribe something that's a Schedule I drug on federal law. It's a recommendation from the doctor that only the dispensaries can dispense.
That's it for me.
Okay, so we have future meeting dates. As I said earlier, this is our last meeting before Christmas, so Merry Christmas to everybody. There's, as Mr. Cobb said, many different events coming up throughout the city for the month of December to celebrate the holidays. So our next meeting date is Tuesday, and yes, that is correct. It is a Tuesday, January 17th, 6:30 p.m. Then on Monday, February 6th, we have a CRA meeting at 5 p.m., and then we have our regular session at 6:30 p.m. Mr. Cobb, can you please check the CRA agenda ahead of time, and if it's a tiny agenda, move that time back a little bit for everybody? We will leave it at your discretion to decide. The start date? Yeah, instead of 5, make it 5:30.
Would you, wow, I'm asking the wrong board, I'm sorry. I was going to say, I would say, do you want me just to go ahead and move it to 5:30, but you're not the CRA board right now, so.
Now, why don't you just,
I will talk to Mr. Jones.
yeah, use your discretion.
It's not a called meeting.
No, that's fine. They can let Mr. Cobb work it out and use his discretion. All right, so that was Monday, February 6th. So then the next meeting is Monday, February 20th, 2017, 6:30 p.m. Regular session. It is about 10:25. Anything else for the good of the order from anybody? Hearing none, we're adjourned.